Welcome to the party, pal. Your friendly neighborhood Master Chaos back with you once again. Happy to have you guys here. This is Hollywood episode 3, my biggest show yet. Look at my guests. Oh my God. I'm in heaven. I'm in nerd heaven. This is going to be a blast. First of all, Mr. Andre Gower. Yes, the leader of the Monster Busters, also known as the Monster Squad. I have a Monster Busters poster actually back here somewhere that I got from a German Blu-ray. But Andre, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Absolutely. And Wetmovie1, the one and only Brendan Mitchell. Thank you so much, sir, for being here. And sorry, go ahead, Brendan.
No, I said no problem. And hello, Nerdy Mom, for joining the show.
Hey, Nerdy Mom. Let's see, we've got a first one here. Hey, Andre, big fan. Great to see you guys. Looking forward to watching your new documentary. You know, I feel like an idiot because I feel like I'm such a Monster Squad fan, and this completely blew past me till I discovered it recently. I'm like, wait a minute, this has been out for like a year now, right?
No. Like, it's just, actually it's just been out since the end of October. So you haven't. You're not that far behind. It's okay.
Okay, good. Well,
but there was sort of a gap from our festival run until an actual release date, which was due to circumstances beyond my control. But Javier, thank you. I appreciate that memo.
Yeah, it's a great documentary. We're going to talk all about Wolfman's Got Nards. That is something that you know. What a gorgeous. Well, first of all. Before we get into the news stories, what sort of was the inspiration to make a documentary sort of celebrating the fans?
Well, I mean, that was sort of it. You know, it was, I knew after a couple of years of kind of the Monster Squad resurgence of being on the road with, you know, Ryan Lambert and Ashley Bank and a handful of the others, but it was mostly those three of us went around for a number of years and were sort of the, you know, the face of this Monster Squad resurgence. And you know, honestly, it was just the stories that these fans told. And we thought this whole kind of, you know, spark and this resurgence wouldn't last very long. And, you know, maybe a year or so, and then everybody would move on to the next thing. And, you know, I always like to chuckle when I say, boy, were we wrong. And it really just kind of really had this, you know, kind of grassroots. That's what made it, you know, last for so long. But as it kept going and got to do more events and more conventions and more screenings and you know, meeting the people face to face and then seeing them on social media. But it was really that face to face interaction and hearing these amazing stories of how much that movie impacted these people as individuals and how it impacted them, how it connected with it, how they connected with characters or the story. And those stories just kept getting deeper and deeper and not going away. And it got to the point at one point that I honestly sat back and said, this is different than other fandoms, because I'm around all the other fandoms. If anybody's been to a major convention or whether it's a genre convention or a pop culture convention, you see it all and it's awesome. But Monster Squad fans are in a different category. And I'm biased a little bit, and that's what I was afraid of over years. But then I realized that it's not a bias. It really is a unique connected fandom to the movie and to each other. And basically it was just those stories. It was those individual impact stories that I realized were a story, and I wanted to make a story telling those stories. I'm
a huge fan of it. It's one of those things that when I realized that you had directed it, I don't know if you remember, I think I tweeted this. Oh my God, Ryan directed this. That's like if Nev Campbell did a documentary on Scream. Like, it's that level of like, holy shit. That's so cool, man.
Yeah, it would sort of be similar, except Scream was a gigantic hit and Monster Squad was a gigantic bomb. But I think that's, a unique part of the story. But I appreciate, being on that level of class with Sidney Prescott and Nev Campbell, because I love her, number one, and the Scream movies are super fun. But yeah, and that's another thing you've got to come to kind of one, realize, two, accept, and then ultimately appreciate, is that people have you in sort of a category that means a lot to them. And I don't want to say that's like there's a little responsibility there, but it's also very cool. And myself and Ryan and Ashley and even Fred and Stephen Mocht and some of the other cast members over the years, I think we all enjoy it. But I know myself and Ryan and Ashley, have really tried to appreciate what that dynamic is, and respect the fact that it's there, and really try to be ambassadors to the legacy of this film that means a lot to people. And it's not our film. We didn't make the Monster Squad. We just read the lines and that were in the script. And but by default, you become those people. And so that's something that's kind of unique, and I don't think a lot of people get to do that. So I certainly understand and appreciate it.
I think what's so different about Monster Squad compared to Goonies or anything from the 80s really is, for a horror fan, for a young horror fan, you guys are the wish fulfillment. Everybody dreams about fighting the monsters. All of the freaking monsters in one, getting your buddies together and kicking some ass. That's what's so special about that movie. It's the ultimate horror fan wish fulfillment. And it just breaks my heart to know that it just didn't do very well. A lot of my favorite movies didn't do very well. It's a Wonderful Life is my favorite movie of all time. That tanked.
Yeah, terrible.
So do you think the resurgence of the love of this movie happened when the DVD and Blu-ray came out of it? It just like brought it back into people's consciousness again?
I think that was the ultimate celebration. Really, the kind of seminal event was the first cast reunion screening at the Alamo Drafthouse in Austin in 2006, because then not even a year later, Lionsgate put out that 20th anniversary DVD. So everything about it all came down to timing, and it just became really fascinating. And everything timing wise since then has really worked out and kind of really clicked into place to create the opportunities that have arisen. And going all the way back for not being not doing well, but the kids that did see it in the theater talked about it and remembered it. And then the other, that was a very small percentage of the fan base, and then they saw it on HBO, and then they saw it at their local video store, which is, those two places really kicked it into gear. But, it was that connection and that word of mouth movie, because of the things, like you said, that wish fulfillment. It's about, talk about a confluence of kind of timing and themes and archetypes and storylines and characters. Whether you were a kid's adventure, you were drawn to that. This fulfilled that. Whether you were a budding genre fan, this jumped into that. Whether you're a classic monster fan, this joined into that. And so all those things kind of came together in one story that no one saw. But then the ones that did, they kept it alive for the next batch, and then the next batch, and it just went from there.
Absolutely.
A friend of mine, I believe, helped make the special features for the DVD and Blu-ray of Monster Squad. I think it was Michael Felcher, right? That interviewed you guys.
It was Mike. He did he produced the actual, the DVD, the second disc with the kind of, the interviews and the behind the scenes kind of making up of stuff back on the 20th anniversary year. Yeah.
Yeah. How was it working with him? Because he's supposedly like the master of like making all the special features for a lot of these boutique labels and stuff now.
He is now, and he said some very nice things about our disc that he worked on, but also he's got a small segment in the documentary about because no one really talks on camera in the documentary unless they have been a part of the Monster Squad or were impacted by it or made an impact to it. And that was, sort of, one of our kind of goals. And, Michael Felcher played a big role in, being kind of that champion of seeing the Heat coming up on the 20th anniversary year, getting with Lionsgate, who probably didn't even realize that they owned the video rights to it, and putting together a special edition. And it happened to be, I think, at the beginning of when Felcher was doing that type of stuff. And hopefully, it kind of gave him a boost and a bump and helped him put on the map with those special features, because now he rips out, stuff all the time, which ironically, full circle, friends of mine, like Heather Buckley and even, my partner in crime on the doc, Henry McComas, have worked on subsequent Felcher special feature stuff. So it's
that's right.
It's a very connected world, which is kind of neat to the individuals inside.
That's awesome. Let's check in with chat real quick. Ash Harry says, "What are you drinking?" Well, I'll tell you what. This I thought would be good. This is elderflower and lavender lemonade, and it kind of sucks, but I'm drinking it anyway. But the thing I really want to start drinking, I've got a Deanston 12-year-old here, and I'm gonna pour that into a nice little glass. And
man,
my apologies, Andre. I didn't have a Monster Squad one, so.
Well, the movie wasn't successful enough to have merch like that. So.
Well, now it is. I feel like, T-shirts and, well, who knows? Maybe we'll get some NECA figures. Fingers crossed. That'd be amazing. So that's what are you drinking, Andre?
This is actually, I'm a tea fiend. So this is just some brewed iced tea. It's flavored, but it's a brew. I'm a caffeine guy. But I don't drink coffee, so it's
really.
I'm an iced tea. I'm an iced tea fiend.
Gotcha. Timothy says the doc was a fun watch. Okay, very good.
I appreciate it. Thanks for being in the goddamn club and downloading that and watching it. So we appreciate it, because this, it's only been out for a couple months on TVOD, and this is really the spot that makes an impact for a movie release, that didn't get a chance to do a regular theater run or even a small one because of a COVID year. But we had a great festival run, and we made this documentary to really watch with a group of people in a darkened room. Yeah. And, to actually have the unfortunate delays that we had from our festival run to actual release day, we would have gotten this movie out, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, really. And we could have all experienced together in a darkened box. But, you gotta take what you can get sometimes. And, hopefully we've had a good release. And right now it's just US and Canada. So as we speak, we're working on the international segment of it. So anybody that's watching not in US and Canada, hang tight. It'll hopefully get to you soon.
Any news on a physical media release, like DVD, Blu-ray
of the doc? Yeah. It's there already is one. So that dropped the same day on October 27th. You can get a Blu-ray or a DVD currently on still from Amazon.com. You just search and order that. And a couple other retailers have been jumping in there as well, but Amazon is obviously the easiest and best. And there might have just been a price drop on it recently. I don't clock it daily, but I check in, every 2 weeks or so, because we're through the end of the year, which is really sort of the first quarter. Even though the fourth quarter of last year was our first quarter being out, and I don't know any numbers yet or success, so it's just really. I can't really gauge it off the echo chamber that I live in the, in our social media bubble of everybody saying, "Oh my God, I loved it. It was great." I don't know how many people that is. So it's, we'll see. Hopefully soon be getting that report shortly.
Hunter Scowron says Wet Movie Crew. And he continues to say Wet Movie is cute. I love it.
Yeah, the Chaos Crew, huh? What's going on? Where's the Chaos Crew at?
Oh, they're here. They're just not as vocal as yours. He's the Bubble Master. That's a new one. I don't know that one.
That is.
And then Carly says, love the doc. Most of my film appreciation class bought it and Monster Squad after I pitched it to the class. Wow.
That's awesome, Carly. You need to be like a manager. Like you need to be like, can I hire you? That sounds amazing.
Awesome. Wow.
I appreciate that though. That's and what's interesting, like we mentioned about Monster Squad itself, you know, there's only so much you can do to shout out, whether you're not spending, you know, a big PR budget or four-walling anything or buying time on Today's Show or something. We had a pretty good PR run. I worked with an awesome publicist named Brittany Sandler, you know, for about 2 or 3 months of getting the doc out, and had some really good coverage. But it's always up to people like Carly, you know, to say, hey, I knew about this because I'm inside sort of this, you know, kind of echo chamber. You need to check this out. Or did you not know about this? So I always rely on the awesome fan base out there, which is a little exploitative, but it's also what you're supposed to do. So it's, you know, but I'm okay with it. Like, really, I don't even really ask the fans to like, hey, you got to go out and get a friend to buy. I never say anything like that because that's just icky. And but we all know that's what it takes. And I think our fans are awesome. And you know, as evidenced by someone like Carly saying, you know, I pitched it to my film appreciation class and they all watched it. Awesome. Even if Carly was just responsible for one, you know, it's about numbers and getting the word out there spread. And that's what that's what Monster Squad fans and now Wolfman's Got Nards fans. There's a crew of Wolfman's Got Nards fans now, not just Monster Squad. And that's what it's all about. So I'm super appreciative of that.
And can I ask you a question? You were talking about conventions and how you go to different ones and you see different kinds of, you know, pop culture horror ones and things. When was the first convention you ever appeared at as, you know, as an actor?
It was really in 2007, and it happened to be Monster Mania in New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
And we got invited as they brought the whole cast. Me, Ryan, Ashley, Duncan Regier, Tom Noonan went.
Nice.
And that might have been it. And that was really the first event shortly after that Alamo screening. And that's ironically the weekend that Felshaw was there and said, oh, by the way, I'm producing the DVD that Lionsgate's putting out, and we're doing interviews tomorrow night in your hotel room. And I was like, no, we're not. I don't know who you, I don't know anything about this. Like no one has, he's like, no one has, it's like, none of us knew anything about that. And Fred was there as well. And I was a little annoyed that, you know, no one had told us about it. And, you know, Ashley and I were kind of apprehensive because we were like, wait, we're going on camera tomorrow night. Like, Ashley's like, is there going to be hair and makeup? And I was like, yeah, can I go into the gym for like a week and like, you know, or go sit in the steam room or get some sun on my skin? And I almost wish I always lament not delaying and telling Michael, be like, look, you're doing stuff in LA in like 2 weeks. I'll fly. I will meet you there. I wasn't living in LA at the time, but I was like, I will fly to LA and do all your other stuff. But it kind of messed with their schedule and they were all set up, and I ended up doing it. I just never really liked the way it wasn't anybody of their fault. It was all my fault of how I looked. But you know, and it's forever because it's on DVD, so it'll never go away. But you know, they were great, and that was that weekend. So 2007 Monster Mania. It was, you know, kind of I mean, we were a big headline cast there, along with the cast of however many Saw movies were by 2007.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was us and this, and that was kind of cool. And that was sort of in the beginning of when genre cons were starting to get really big. And, you know, then they just, you know, went berserk for a number of years and became crazy. But that was a good show.
Have you ever had any weird experiences with like a fan of the movie or anything like that? You're like, oh, what? Get away from me, you know, whatever, like some weird stuff. Because like Master Chaos over here is known for that when he goes to conventions.
He probably can't say. He probably has contractual obligations. Hey,
I want to know what Brendan was saying. He said Master Chaos is sort of known for that. Are you known for getting that, or are you known for being the weird guy? Which one?
He's known for being the weird guy.
Oh, no, I get loved by the ladies. When I walk around, it's like the Beatles, man. So I assume that's how it is with you, Andre. So, like, we're brothers from another mother when it comes to that.
I hear you. I don't know if any weird stuff. I mean, what's weird? People certainly get excited. And that's what's something different about Monster Squad fans. Like they're super genuine. They're super appreciative that you're there. And they're just super glad to get to meet you or hang out with you, whether it's me or Ryan or Ashley or, even, Stephen Mocht or Fred, because all they're really there to do is to show their appreciation and how much it's been meant to them. And so you just kind of, it's easy to respond to that. Weird stuff, not really, fortunately. You get people emotional, you get people, kind of losing their minds sometimes. But that's not weird. That's just fun. Never had to call security. Haven't had to call security on too many people, if ever.
Man, I want to bring that up because, like, it probably happens to a lot of the female, people in the genre and stuff. Because I know, like, Danielle Harris has had like a stalker that stalked her, like, did some weird stuff, and she's been on like talk shows talking about it, and like different celebrities that go to these conventions have told me some weird stuff. So I just didn't know if you ever had an experience like that.
Not, and I don't want to say it's fortunate because it shouldn't happen to anybody, but
of course not.
Definitely the ladies on whatever side of entertainment get the weird end of the stick, 99% of the time. And that's, I mean, you can understand where it's coming from, where people just don't know how to handle the situation, or, socially they're, just kind of, not dialed in. But it should never happen. And, we always hate to hear of weird stories because people will defend or condone, if we're calling it weird behavior, there's kind of untoward behavior as something, they're just having fun or they don't know. And you're like, yes, that's probably true. However, we also know that you can't take any of it for granted because you never know where that can turn. It can turn dark and weird very quickly. And, obviously as, middle-aged dudes, someone like Ryan and I mean, we get our female fans, wigging out, losing their mind, they were Teen Magazine fans or Ryan's Kids Things fans or something, and we're used to that. You kind of understand the degrees and levels to, how they're interacting. But, you get people, like with Ashley or someone like Danielle or, Shawnee Smith, that you see a bunch. And I know Danielle. I've known Danielle for years, and I used to work out at her. She had a workout studio in LA, and a friend of mine taught dance classes there, and so I would go, do his dance workout classes and see Danielle, and that was a cool spot. And it should just never happen. Number one, obviously, and I think we all try to look out for each other and kind of give everybody a thumbs up or a we got your back or something. But it's always, I don't want to say weird at conventions, but it's always something you just keep some people you realize you're like, hey, let's you try to be gracious and respectful to everybody that wants to come up and meet you, whether they're giant fans or just stopping by to be fun. But every once in a while you meet someone and realize you're like, okay, let's make sure that, we keep them at an arm's length, or let's, if we see them other places or something. And like I said, for someone like me and Ryan, it rarely happens, but you need to be vigilant no matter who you are, because there's also bad stories and you don't want to be another bad story. You don't want Danielle to end up being a headline. You don't want Ashley to be a headline. So it's just, I think we all look out for each other, hopefully.
Well, as long as you have not, as long as no one's ever kicked you in the nards, that's all that matters. That's good.
No one has kicked me in the nards. I've been asked many times to kick other people in the nards, and I'm always, apprehensive about that, because that's kind of weird. It's like, am I signing a waiver here? Or
probably not a smart move in this day and age. But everyone wishes that they had a chance to kick the Wolfman in the nards. Absolutely. Who didn't? Everyone. I mean, that's fantastic stuff. We were just talking about Danielle Harris, and that kind of leads me into my first story. Guys in the chat, we will do all Monster Squad towards the end, but it is a news show. So we're going to discuss a couple of quick little news items. I'm going to get my guests' opinions on said items, and then we'll continue with the Monster Squad love. So, first story is this. Now, this could be hyperbole. It could be a producer wanting to. Let me just make that a little bigger. Then could just be a producer wanting to make sure that people go see it. But John Carpenter describes Halloween Kills as the ultimate slasher. John Carpenter really digs Halloween Kills. In a recent interview with Entertainment Weekly to discuss his latest album, Lost Themes 3, which I'm very excited about, the horror maestro took time to talk about the highly anticipated sequel, and boy, is he excited. So he goes on to say, it's brilliant. It's the ultimate slasher. I mean, there's nothing more than this one. Wow, man. I mean,
so pretty much, like, we don't even need to see the one that comes after that.
Right. Brendan, give me your thoughts on this.
Well, like, I don't know if I think it's just for like part of the hype train, but I'm just really, I really kind of want to get Discovery Plus now for some reason.
Oh yeah, there you go. Okay, so that's your thoughts on it. Art, welcome to the show, pal. Good to see you, man. I'm glad you're here. Are you excited for Halloween Kills, Brendan?
I'm down. I'm down to see those ones. I kind of like how they have Jamie Lee Curtis back, even though Resurrection they got her, they got her, but it is what it is. That's here nor there, but I'm excited to see this new one. Different
universe. Andre, what are your feelings on Halloween Kills?
I know the kind of people behind it and making it, at Blumhouse and, pals like Ryan Turek and people, that are in it and around it a little bit. And I certainly know more Halloween fans, like true Halloween, the movie fans. And right. I know everybody's excited about something. The first one is the reboot that they did. I thought was certainly enjoyable. I thought it had some good feels and some good looks. And it whet the appetite for everybody to get these next two. But yeah, Brendan, like you said, it's like, if this is the ultimate, then the next one sucks. I don't think he's saying that, but I do like the irony. Look, we've all got to, as filmmakers and actors and producers and executive producers, more so as executive producers, when you have a stake in something, you definitely want to make sure that you get good, get good word out there and get people hyped up, because it's really about that. Nowadays it's a little different, but you really got to have that hype so people are loaded up and ready to go, and then everybody will talk about it and get that word of mouth. And hopefully that happens for all the people that are, working hard to make this movie, because it's not just about the guy in the mask or Jamie Lee Curtis or, Jason Blum or Ryan Turek. It's about all the people that make the movie that you don't know who they are, because if it's success, it does what they get to make more. And there's so many more people that their livelihoods and jobs rely on fans liking something or talking about it, than the ones that you do know about. It's 99 to 1, usually. And it's all those awesome people that are making the effects, or, building the costuming, or, rigging lights, or rigging building sets, and location people. And, we all just want to make movies and TV shows, and, there's a lot that goes into that. And so the more support we all give everybody to make something, sometimes in the movie world, there's kind of I've said echo chamber 100 times, but everybody supports everybody. And sometimes it seems, disingenuous, because, as a filmmaker or an actor, like, oh my God, I can't wait to see my buddy in this movie. He's going to rock it. Because a lot of people do it and all they want is someone to say that about them. Yeah. And, you got to do it from a position, a genuine position. But, on the bigger picture, a rising tide lifts all boats. And I think that's what, we in entertainment, and especially in the horror community, which, I feel like I'm a part of, and the small film, making and filmmakers club, we all try to support each other, because you have to.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I for one, that's a great feedback on that. There's so much that goes into making a movie like this. I mean, promotion is such a big part of it nowadays. I think with a name like Halloween, you're gonna get people to go see it anyway. I don't know that I'm still on the fence whether I like the last Halloween or not. I like I'm an old school Halloween fan, and the fact that they just said, okay, the original Halloween 2, which I think was better, is gone. Now it's this one. and then we're gonna make a trilogy that's gonna be the actual whatever 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
I don't know. Still on the fence. I'm gonna hold out hope until I see the entire thing, and then I'll say, "Oh, that was really good. I like where they took it." I'm on the fence. I love Mike. I mean, what a powerful icon. But I don't know.
I definitely think it's more of a. I think he's probably one of the better icon. I mean, Freddy Krueger's the scariest monster to me, or scariest villain, because he doesn't exist. Like, he's in your head, and that's just nothing's more scary. I can run away from Michael Myers. You can't run away from Freddy Krueger. But with what you were saying about how it takes the originals out. And I think what I've tried to do with movies of all brands and banners lately, when there's a reboot or a new trilogy or a new sequel that doesn't match or fit in with what we originally liked, you have to step back and go, you know what? This wasn't made for me. This is made for an entire new generation of people, because they're trying to get them to kickstart their connection to it. And there's a little bit of threads and things that we're going to connect with. And that'll bring us to the theater, bring us to the click on the streaming thing. So if you go into that and understanding it and take kind of and that's the problem with fandom, being a fan of something. What we've seen over the last decade is that a lot of people think fandom equals ownership, and it doesn't. It can be parallel, but you don't own the franchise, you don't own the IP, you didn't write the script. And you can look at a lot of things that piss you off when you see something that you're really hyped about. Star Wars, like Star Wars, when you get to go, what was that? But then you realize that made $1 billion because the 11-year-olds are going apeshit for it. And you realize, you're like, you know what? This is called the movie business, not movie Andre world. And then you understand that. I learned that very early with Return of the Jedi, and that's been a hard lesson to swallow. But now that you're older, you learn to understand that, especially now that we're not getting any younger and I'm getting old, that there's a big gap in separation, and there's got to be new audiences, and you've got to bring these stories and got to update them, or with just enough connection to the past, the originals will like it and give you some love for it. And but that's what we're doing now, and if you do it right, then good for you.
Art says, I'm super excited for Halloween Kills. The anticipation is killing me. I know you're a big Halloween fan, so I hope you enjoy it, my friend. Just Dave says, I think the Halloween reboot is more for getting newer fans. And I forgot that I'm gonna spotlight this with the Ragman, Master Chaos Crew right here. Brendan. And Ragman. I love the Radu, man. You know I love me some Full Moon. Good job. I love that. One more second here. Timothy Marceau says, I don't care what you say. Ghostbusters 2016 didn't help the franchise one bit. Well, I guess that's true. Yeah. But there is a new Ghostbusters, so maybe it inspired them to actually make a part 3. Fingers crossed.
The other key thing there is, like, if we're pulling out like an individual movie like Ghostbusters 16, what was the total production and marketing budget of that movie worldwide, and did it make a profit? And did it get past its break-even point? If it did, then a success, and that's why people make movies.
And it failed completely. I think it made like $20, but but they tried. Okay,
and that's fine, because who knows if it hadn't gotten a bunch of that movie could have been successful if people didn't jump off the bat and poo-poo it right from the beginning because they felt like they owned the Ghostbusters franchise when they don't. You can enjoy something fully. Now, granted, one of my all-time favorite movies had a reboot, and I thought the reboot wasn't that great, but I didn't go around and poo-poo it because that someone wrote it, someone made it, someone directed it, someone edited it, and I don't like to poo-poo other people's things. But it really wasn't as good as the original, and it wasn't even a sufficient, follow-up. But I try not to poo-poo anything anytime, because it's really hard to get these things made.
Yeah, I try not to poo-poo either, especially when I'm live.
It's always good advice. It's always good advice.
All right, and the next story, I'm curious what you guys think about this. I'm excited. When Justice League was originally in production, it was rumored that Leto's Joker would be making a post-Suicide Squad return in Snyder's movie, but thanks to the Justice League's rocky production and numerous edits, Joker didn't make it into the theatrical release. It appears that Snyder's adding the Clown Prince of Crime back into the film for the Snyder Cut, which is like 4 freaking hours. Snyder's tweet includes a photo of a gloved hand holding a Joker card, as well as a blurry image of the Joker in the background. And his tweet says, "Amazing character you created. Honored to have our worlds collide." And he tags David Ayer and Jared Leto. Now, it's blurry, but you can see a clear difference. I mean, I see like long hair, longish hair. I'm guessing he's going to get a redesign. First of all, Andre, what are your thoughts on the whole Snyderverse in general, and are you excited for the Snyder Cut?
I think it's been, probably one of the, most genius, kind of marketing campaigns of a movie that a lot of people maybe didn't like, and it's still in everybody's mouth because we keep talking about, a different cut. The Snyder Cut has had a lot more mileage than the butthole cut of Cats, and for a reason. And I guess there's a giant fan base. I think it's whether it was meant to be from the beginning or not, it's a genius, kind of promotional path. And what would be great if they end up having this 4-hour thing, and that's the only image you ever get of a Leto Joker. It worked. You watched it. I don't know. I think here's an interesting, example of fandom and fan demand and fan fervor wanting something, because everybody talked about the Snyder Cut right off the bat, right? And that was how many years ago? It has been forever. And you may be finally getting it. And that's up to the fans, which means they have a voice if they're doing it in concert and doing it in a positive way and creating. So now you're just creating more projects and more art and another thing that everybody can enjoy. Now, would this have happened if it wasn't COVID year? Who knows? Probably. Would it have been released in the theaters? I don't know. This Warner Brothers stuff going to HBO Max is very interesting, this year. But you know what? It's also probably, if it didn't happen, if all those things weren't, you might not have gotten it. So what's going to happen when it comes out and all the people that were, I want the Snyder Cut, then they're going to go, oh, that sucked. I was like, but you got it. Like you kvetched for years that you wanted it. You have to just absorb it. It's okay if you don't like it. That's fine. But you can't you just accept that it's out and enjoy it and either like it or not and move on to your next film that you want to watch. But I think a lot of people get really, really connected to things, especially nowadays. Yeah. More so than they did 20 years ago.
Absolutely. It's social media. It's film fans becoming more astute, more aware. I mean, when I was growing up, when I saw Monster Squad, I don't know how you guys pulled that off. There was no behind the scenes. There was no, interviews. You would watch Entertainment Tonight. That would be the only thing you could see of like behind the scenes stuff. So now, I mean, it's almost like the fans are on set with the, with the actors and the crew. It's crazy.
It's a whole other world, that you can't even imagine. And you either got to stay on top of it to do it right, or otherwise don't do it. And you've got to be very careful with how you do it now, because it's instant. It is instant. Back in the day, like you were talking about, your promotion was maybe a magazine, which was at least 30 days out from whenever you did the phone call interview. And then Entertainment Tonight, which was at least, probably a week out or 2 weeks out. But now it's literally, as soon as you say something, it's the planet knows about it. Yeah. Or the minute you wear something, and so it's a whole new world. And I think people that are in charge of that to do it well are, very skilled and very bold. And I mean, that's a great image right there to promote something. I mean, that's how you do it right there. If you're going to do something like that, you post a picture like that.
Brendan, what do you think? Are you excited for the Snyder Cut?
Yeah, I'm down to see it, especially during the way the world is now. Like everyone's just at home. So if they release like a 4-hour-long movie, we don't have to sit there and watch it all at once, But I am excited about it because even me and my friends, my friend Itzmo, also known as 90s and stuff, started the hashtag Release the Snyder Cut. We went outside of Warner Brothers. We had like all of us hold this like a big sign that says hashtag Release the Snyder Cut and stuff. And I think that might have been what kind of kickstarted that whole hashtag thing about Release the Snyder Cut. If you guys,
that's right. That's right. You were in that first fucking picture. Oh my god, I totally forgot.
Yeah.
You were like one of like 20 people standing outside of Warner's. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't my idea. You know, it was, you know, my friend's Itzmo on YouTube, but you know, it was her idea to do it. But yeah, I'm down to see this one no matter what. But I think we're gonna get more Ben Affleck in this one too.
Yes, well, a lot more of everybody.
Yeah, well, 4 hours it better be.
Yeah, exactly. Off topic, but I'm gonna shout him out because I love Fluffy. Did you see Adam the Woo do a filming location for Monster Squad? I did not. Andre, did you know that Adam the Woo's kind of a big YouTuber?
Yeah, I did see that, and I commented on it. I think it was cool to see him, you know, walk around and go to some of the spots. And one of them was on the Warner Ranch, and it was actually on the street where you can't get in, but it was literally 2 blocks away from a condo I used to live in about 5 years ago. So he was right there. But yeah, it was neat because I think people dig stuff like that to a certain extent. I like when people go and find their own, and then, you know, something like Adam doing is, I mean, it gets that. It's a whole just a different element of it where it really brings kind of the you know, some of the reality to the fiction, and it kind of sets it in the real world. Sometimes I don't like kind of behind the scenes stuff or extras or deleted scenes or like, this is where we shot that. I was like, I used to not like stuff like that as much because it takes me out of the world I escaped into. Yeah. And I'm not a huge bonus features and like behind the scenes.
Same.
But, you know, some people are, and that's totally fine. And look, with the documentary, we have 60 minutes of bonus features on top of a 90-minute documentary. But it wasn't released, unfortunately, on the US or Canada version. So you'll have to wait, hopefully, for the international. Or if that doesn't happen, trust me, I will get those 60 minutes released somehow to everybody. But because I like to escape into things, because I also make these movies and I'm in them. So you know, like, where these things are. So it's not as interesting. But I still dig it because, you know, when I watch TV shows and movies, and especially if they're shot anywhere that I've been, I try to figure out where they are, and instantly it's like, oh, that's so and so and so and so. And I do that constantly on TV shows and things like that. I do it every morning right now because I have 2 shows that are tied for my all-time TV shows, and they're both on at the same time from like 6 in the morning until 10 right now. And so I'm so old school. I'm watching cable, and I flip back and forth, and I see them. And one's Emergency, you know, the old fireman paramedic show, and they always shot that in the Valley and all over LA. And I love seeing locations that I know from in the 70s, you know, but I know exactly where they are.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Location-wise, I was on the Warner backlot for it was some Halloween event. They did a Warner Brothers Halloween thing, and I went, like, holy shit, I get to walk around the Warner backlot, whatever. And one of these events was set up at this church. It was something for The Exorcist. And I'm in line, and I'm looking up at this white church. Is that the church from Monster Squad? Yeah. And I asked everybody who worked there, hey, is that the church from Monster Squad? Do you guys know if that's the church from Monster Squad? Nobody knew. Nobody knew. Like, you fuckers work here. How do you not know? It turned out it was. And I'm like, I'm literally standing where the world was saved.
That's right. That's right. Where the 5-year-old girl of the group saves the world. She's our hero, which is awesome. Very ahead of its time for 87. That's called Midwestern Street or Midwest Street on the back lot of Warner Brothers, on the main lot, not the ranch lot, but the main lot. And a lot of stuff has been shot there. That's Dukes of Hazzard Square. That's The Music Man, The Gilmore Girls, Shameless, Monster Squad. I mean, so many things. I mean, even some old famous movies have been shot, you know, right there. And that's just movie magic. You know, you turn the camera at a different angle and it's a whole other place. But yeah, that church is kind of iconic now for a couple of reasons.
Absolutely. Intro on Kaiju, a friend of the show, says, I don't think I'll be really into the Snyder Cut, but I'm glad people are getting to see something they asked for. Hey, that's cool, man. I'm down to clown. I cannot wait. I'm honestly a big fan of the whole Snyderverse in general. I'm one of the few people who really enjoyed Superman versus Batman. I thought that was I mean, I get why people didn't like it, but there was elements in that movie that really blew me away. And I'm a big Superman guy. I've got a Superman tattoo. I don't know. It spoke to me. Nerdy Mom says, Peter Jackson ruined all other special features for me. Yes, absolutely.
Well, that's interesting with Peter. I would never watch something that was special features for a Peter Jackson movie because I'm in a completely other unit. I don't want real stuff. I don't want to connect my real world to even Lord of the Rings or anything, which I actually liked those movies because I love fantasy and I love world building and I love characters and creatures and basically this fantasy adventure, which I grew up more a fan of than anything besides sci-fi. Sci-fi and fantasy adventure were my things. And look, if I watch something like Forbidden Planet, I don't want to see the guy in the back, with the fishing pole, holding a spaceship. And I was like, that's a spaceship, man. Like, I don't want to see how the sausage is made.
Absolutely. Brendan, you watch a lot of physical media, man. Where do you stand? I know you don't have a lot of time because you're watching a ton of shit. Do you watch special features anymore? Because you probably did at the beginning, but do you even have time for it anymore?
Well, I pretty much just do it on movies I like. You know what I mean? Like, I think the last time I watched some special features when I was watching Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with the kids here, and I just popped it on and just sort of sat there and watched a couple of them. But I don't really sit through a lot of special features that much these days.
Gotcha. It's hard, man. It's hard. Tim H says, any thoughts on a vampire playing Batman? Huh?
We also have we got On Air Nation here, which is Michael Ray Bauer is up in the house.
Bauer. I love Bauer. Michael Ray Bauer, he asked you, hey, Andre, did you collect Garbage Pail Kids?
Not at kind of the time when they came out. I had a bunch of friends that did. I don't know. They kind of ooged me out a little bit because they were so gross, but they were so inventive. But what I did like about Garbage Pail Kids is they were the anti-Cabbage Patch Kids. And we had a Cabbage Patch Kid in the house. Like my sister had one because she's a couple years older than I am. And then the Garbage Pail Kids came out, and I thought that was definitely, a 180-degree turn from Cabbage Patch world. I didn't collect them. I've never been into something. I've never been cool enough. Like I never got into the level of cool to where like I collected a bunch of comics or did trading cards. I had them all, and I had a handful of Garbage Pail Kids because at the time we would buy each other birthday presents, and you would always get something that someone would think you'd like. So I always had a stack of them. I just never got into the game of trading them. And I think that has to do with the way my brain's wired, because if you're doing something like that, you got to stay in that and you go 100%. And what I always do is I love to learn about something, get involved, learn as much as I can, and then I jump to the next thing. And, to really stay in something, like D&D when I was a kid fascinated me. It was a little for the older kids when it was really popular. So I wasn't around it as much, but then I knew about it. And then when the time I was old enough to actually get into it, I had already known about it. And so I moved on to other things, and like comic books, D&D, Garbage Pail Kids, or trading cards, or whatever the games were at the time that you would really connect as people. Yes. Are fascinating to me because they really are an instrument of doing that. Like they'll bring, if it was us three like that and we were trained, like we instantly become part of this little community. Yeah. I think where that world happened for me was in organized sports. And so most of it was doing that. And so I always had teammates and friends, and we would trade in that trade, equipment or things like that. But the Garbage Pail Kids now are awesome. And I actually met, or I know there's a fan who's actually an artist for them, which is because the art if you go back and look at them, it's really good art. It is fascinating.
Absolutely. I mean, they're collectible. The little art pieces. Absolutely.
Yeah, they absolutely are collections of art and one of a kind. And, I don't know if anybody knows, the little kind of Easter eggs of stuff that was actually in the treehouse in the Monster Squad, but there are Garbage Pail Kids cards in the treehouse in Monster Squad. So that's a nice little tidbit, which we had actually 2 different times in the last couple of years for events, shooting the doc and promoting the doc, or festivaling the doc. We actually rebuilt the treehouse with actual art and posters that were in the original that we recreated, which was kind of fun. Yeah, those were 2 neat experiences.
Dude, so Tim clarifies, Robert Pattinson. What do we think about Robert Pattinson as Batman? Honestly, I think Nerdy Mom had a good point. He's a good actor, and even though he did the Twilight movies, it doesn't necessarily I mean, obviously, it leaves a stigma when it comes to audiences, especially how we're talking about fandom is very different nowadays. Honestly, it remains to be seen. The jury is out until I see him.
Hey, as long as he sparkles a little bit, that's all that matters. Or gives us a little jazz hands, that's all that matters.
So you want his Batman to sparkle? That's a terrible choice. Andre, you have any thoughts on Pattinson or Pattinson?
I think Pattinson is actually a good actor. I think people should. I mean, everybody can have their opinion. That's exactly what it's all about. You can like it or not like it. Watch it first, find out, and then talk about it. Like I said, I never try to poo-poo anybody, either acting wise or filmmaker wise or writing wise, because I'm by far not the all-time greatest in any of those endeavors. I think Pattinson's got a great look. I think it's a bold choice. I think that's probably what we should celebrate here.
Absolutely.
I mean, what do you want? The same old thing. I mean, you know, we're holding on like everybody loves Michael Keaton. I love Michael Keaton. I'd love to see him play Batman again. That'd be amazing.
He's coming back.
You know, yeah. I mean, that's a cool thing. You know, do we want Val Kilmer again? I love Val Kilmer. He's amazing. You know, I think give Pattinson a chance. He may surprise you. I think he's going to surprise you. You know, but you can't go in there already negative, because then there's too much ground to make up. So go in there even keel, just be open-minded and enjoy the movie. It's about the story anyway, and how that guy, whoever's in the suit or the makeup or the face or the mask, carries that along and brings you along with them. So let's go with that.
Absolutely. Fluffy says he's got to be better than Bennifer. You know what? I thought Ben was a good goddamn Batman. So go suck an egg, Fluffy. On Air Nation, our buddy Bauer says they have a few Monster Squad Garbage Pail Kids out there. Plus, GPK is in the Monster Squad.
Yep.
That's interesting. I did not know that they did themed Monster Squad Garbage Pail Kids. If that's true, let us know. That's amazing.
Yeah, I want to see one of those. I don't think I have. That'd be kind of rad. Oh, actually, wait a minute. Have I? Or did we just think about it one time? Because I think there was like we did Broody Rudy or like Duty Rudy or something like.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, I can't. We either goofed on it or we've seen it. I can't remember. That's what happens when, one, you get old, and two, you do a lot of this.
Gotcha. I see that Brendan had to step away for a minute, so we'll wait for him to get back. I know I saw a question somewhere. Carly says, Andre, I know you love to read. I was wondering if you have ever read the set of encyclopedias?
Yeah, not from page 1 to page bazillion, but I grew up with a set of World Book encyclopedias. And so that's why I did all of my kind of school papers out of, because there's no internet. There's, didn't go to the library and get periodicals and things like that. I went to the World Book for specific projects and papers all the way through, going into high school. But I also would, this is about as dorky as it gets. We always had bookshelves and had a ton of different books from different subjects, and which was cool. But that World Book was on the the lower shelf, and I could always access that when I was a kid. And I would you could pull some out and open up a page. And what's cool about encyclopedia is it's basically everybody makes fun of them nowadays, but I was like, that's all you do on Twitter. You're reading short blurbs of information, and you learn something. You learn something new. And I loved opening up the page and just scanning the pages and learning something about a dinosaur or a person or the Civil War or something like that. And those little tidbits, they stick with you. And I still do that. I grab my encyclopedia and open it up every time I'm on my phone. Because if I'm reading a news article or someone's story or an entertainment story about a movie and they mention something or someone that I don't know, I will instantly go and search them and read basically, Wikipedia or something about them to learn. And so I still do it. But no, I have not read the entire set. I have read many pages in each one though, over time, for sure.
There's still time, man. There's still time.
Gosh. Oh, that would, I don't know.
If we're still locked down, you never know.
That isn't who has the entire. I don't have that set anymore. We got rid of that years ago.
I did online, dude.
Yeah, it's. Like I said, I do that all day long. It's crazy. I'll be watching a movie and they'll mention something or a TV show, and I'm notorious for that because, like I said, my two favorite shows I watch constantly on repeat, and even a third show. And for some reason, my favorite shows always happen to be medical kind of, paramedic-y oriented, and they'll mention something or a medical term or a situation, and I'll just instantly search that and learn about it. And that's kind of corny, but I do that all day long. Or I want to know who this actor is, or where they shot this movie, and then you rabbit hole from there. So it's the new world book on the shelf. Love it.
Fluffy says he will enjoy that egg. Good. Well, hopefully it fills you up, you son of a bitch. Interweb Kaiju loves Batfleck, or liked, I guess. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Affleck is I think Affleck is something at the end of the day you end up coming down on the side of saying, you know what, Affleck is okay at what he does, and sometimes he's good at it. Whether it's directing or bringing a story, or there's some things I really like Ben Affleck in. Yeah. There's some things that Ben Affleck's really annoying in, but he's supposed to be as the character. And so I guess that shows range, but I don't think either one of those, two, you always associate Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. Those guys have, whether you like them or they annoy you or frustrate you, they literally have been driven from day one before they did anything.
Yeah.
Ironically, my all-time favorite show is Jeopardy. And so the other day was a Jeopardy question, and it said these two actors shared a joint bank account to help each other pay for their dreams of becoming actors. And it was Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. And so that means they didn't just all of a sudden become who they are. They were struggling for a long time to do what they do, and they've done what it takes, and it's a lot of work. And when you're prolific like those two guys and make a ton of movies, like, not everyone's going to be great.
Yeah.
But you got to balance out, and you come out on par at the end of the scale. And I like both of them. I also like to make fun of both of them sometimes, and then I like to celebrate. I like to celebrate them, in other times. I think two underserved movies for those two guys are actually two of my favorite movies of the last 10 years. And I think my favorite Matt Damon movie is The Good Shepherd. And that is such a good movie because, one, I'm a Cold War nut, and, spy movie or espionage, things like that. And that's at the beginning of all of that in the Cold War. And he's so good in that movie because that character has no affect. And there's no Affleck either, but he has no affect. Almost, he's just kind of this dull drum, but he gets it done, and he's the perfect guy for the situation. I think Matt Damon's fabulous in that movie. And I think Ben Affleck is fabulous in The Accountant.
Oh, yes.
Which he's playing a guy in the spectrum who's a badass, and you don't get the kind of whole backstory with the family and the brother. But I love the twist. It's a great movie. I really dug that movie, and I thought Ben Affleck was great in it. So, those balance out Geely and everything else. So who cares?
Absolutely. We got to move on, but I want to answer this question real quick from Tim H. We'll do that real quick. What is either of yours favorite werewolf movie? For mine, very obscure movie called Bad Moon with Michael Paré.
Yeah.
Crap, great werewolf work in that movie, and no one talks about it. Also, Silver Bullet's fantastic. Brendan, I see that you were busy.
Yeah, that's not what I was doing. It could have been.
What's your favorite werewolf movie?
I don't know if I really have one, though. You know what I mean? Like American Werewolf in London, I guess. Or, I don't know. Like, this is the generic answer, but I don't know. I'm not a big werewolf guy.
Andre, do you have one?
I don't know if I have anyone either. I love the concept of the character because it's so singular, but yet it became iconic.
Yeah.
And there's kind of been different iterations of them, everywhere from the original and then, Abbott and Costello type things. And, even TV shows that show it. Bad Moon, anything with Michael Paré is good. I'll go with you though on that. Well, if we have to pick, that was old school, but,
yeah,
it's tough to have, being a werewolf on its own. Like I remember the Howling, everything's just, it got really, it goes in waves and they come in popularity, what they are. And then we have werewolves and things like, vampires and werewolves has always kind of been around. Like they never go away. You got Twilight and Bad Blood and Harry Potter and
Nerdy Mom says Ginger Snaps. That one was actually all right. I remember liking that one.
People love Ginger Snaps. People love Ginger Snaps, and people love Hocus Pocus.
Oh, Hocus Pocus is the bomb. That's a good movie. I'm surprised you didn't say Monster Squad, though, man. That's got one of the greatest monster transformations ever, man.
It has a great werewolf in it. It's not a werewolf movie, so
Yeah.
if we're going for that, and plus I always root for the the home team, but I never vote for a home team.
Right.
My favorite Wolfman movie is obviously Wolfman's Got Nards.
Yeah, that's obviously the perfect choice. I'm curious your thoughts on this phenomena in general. Let's talk Stranger Things, because to me, I love Stranger Things. I have a lot of fun with it, but there would not be a Stranger Things without Monster Squad. Now, Gaten Matarazzo, who plays Dustin, recently came out and said, "Yikes." I think most would probably say it's the scariest season out of the previous 3, which I love because it's very fun to film. So he's talking about season 4. Also, David Harbour also mentions that this season is my favorite. Hopper really is going to show you some new colors and what he's really made of. So what do we feel? I guess I'll go to Andre first. What do we feel about Stranger Things in general? And are you looking forward to a scarier season 4, or do you want them to burn in hell?
Well, I don't want that. I'll defer to Brendan. You go first, because then I have a deeper Stranger Things cut going. So it'll
Okay.
Go ahead.
Since we have On Air Nation in the room and Michael Ray Bauer, he's been really wanting me to get up on watching this, and I own the first 2 seasons on Blu-ray. Only ever watched the first 2 episodes of season 1. Still haven't got around to actually getting through it, even though him and some other friends said you're gonna love it because it's like 80s and all nostalgia vibes and stuff. But my ass still hasn't got off. Turned that shit on, put it on yet.
Andre?
Well, damn it, that was my response too. As a deeper thing, I think the kind of the creation and the production and the hit that it's become is amazing. Like I said, I always like to celebrate things that are fun that people enjoy. I love it. I think it's great. I think it's a cultural phenomenon right now, or something that everybody's enjoying. I think the kids are phenomenal. A little biased, when you were a kid actor, to see other kid actors enjoying some cool stuff and being good at what they do, and then having some, awesome success. And hopefully that's only positive for them, because, there's some other stuff, that can, end up going down, with perspective and things like that as you progress and get older. So hopefully all these kids are enjoying this run, because it's definitely a once in a lifetime thing. And hopefully they all get to do a ton of other stuff. I know Finn and all those guys have been doing, and obviously Matarazzo is going to be, probably working, forever, which is awesome, because of things like Stranger Things. So you have to celebrate that. As for the tie-in with Monster Squad, it's interesting because, you mentioned that there wouldn't be a Stranger Things without Monster Squad. When we first saw Stranger Things and it came out and everybody was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." I think we all agreed. I think, we watched it, like Ryan and I were watching at the same time, not together, but we would, call each other or text and be like, "Hey, did you see episode 3? It's like the thing, or the one, but he literally rolls up on a bike and saves the kid, from the." I'm like, that's a direct homage or a direct lift. And I was like, that's pretty cool, because as soon as that hit, everybody contacted us about how Monster Squad-y Stranger Things is. So that was kind of cool to be, kind of connected to something as, big as Stranger Things is.
Yeah.
Then it got to the point, like we were sort of in production on the documentary then. And I was like, look, I had actually just found out that the Duffer Brothers actually grew up in Durham. And I know what high school they went to, and I lived kind of, not far from them for many, many years, even when they were in there. And so I was always wanting to get in touch with them, just to kind of be pals, let alone that they were making the biggest thing in the history of Netflix.
Yeah.
But just to be like, hey, I actually want to shoot the shit about, living in Durham, and, I used to live in Raleigh and stuff like that, and talk about, things like that. And then, influences and movies, and just kind of pal around. But then I actually really wanted them in the documentary. And we reached out, our researcher reached out and talked to their reps, and kind of got a big stonewall, because it was hard to get to them because they were the hottest thing on the planet, right? And everybody wanted to talk to them. And sometimes the Monster Squad key gets your door opened or gets the phone call returned. And we just ran into a stone wall because I didn't have a direct into them. And our researcher kept coming up against their agent, and they were doing their job as gatekeepers. But apparently we gave them the pitch, we gave them the request. We told them who it was coming from. There's a connection there. We'd love, to come on camera and talk to you about the things that you grew up and influenced you, whether it was Monster Squad or whatnot. And we got the return call, a couple of days later or whatever, and said, yeah, they're not interested because they've never seen the Monster Squad.
What?
I still don't know, because everybody went apeshit when they said that. And I was like, look, let's take this for what it is. This is, an agent's office calling and saying this. That could either be complete BS or absolutely true. And until I hear it, until I actually get to meet one of the Duffer brothers or have a tea with them and just, shoot the shit, I don't know. Whether they haven't seen the Monster Squad is totally possible. Their writers sure have.
Yes.
So, so that's the other half of the answer that we started in the conversation. So, I don't know. Otherwise, there's a lot of coincidences. I'm not saying anybody's stealing anything, because everybody, it's all influences and homages and tributes, really, and that's totally fine. But I've always wanted to know, because we were like, they have they seen their own show?
Right.
But then we realized there's a giant a writing staff on that show and people like that may have put those things in, and they may never have. Who knows? But until I hang out with the Duffers, I don't care what the answer is. I don't land on one side of the fence yet, because I don't know it from the horse's mouth. But there sure are some cool parallels in there, which I think works, which is fine, because the things that work in Stranger Things are the things that work in Monster Squad. It's, a team of kids, they're rising up to a challenge. There's an adventure. There's some danger. There's some kids in peril. There's some side characters that come in. It's a kids adventure movie, set in a dark, perilous thing, which everybody relates to, because those are kind of cool archetypes where kids really dig. What was interesting about Stranger Things is kids enjoyed the show because it's for them. It's for that age range. Sure. But we all enjoyed the show because it hit the nostalgia buttons too. So they had a double audience, which was either intentional or unintentional. But either way, it came out genius. So it hit on all those things, which is what you want.
Absolutely. Stranger Things was the first show that I ever watched with my daughter. She had seen Monster Squad. We're big fans. When Stranger Things came about, I'm like, holy shit, it's Monster Squad, the show, which I'll get into later in the episode. But, it's 100% of Monster Squad.
Like I said, I think it is too, but there's also a bunch of other elements in there. And then Ryan Lambert actually had read something that I can't remember which one, but one of the Duffers was giving an interview, and it mentioned that they didn't grow up, because their age is a little bit later technically. Okay. So they apparently, this is from a one-off story that got read. But Ryan Lambert had mentioned it, that he was reading that made sense, but it was kind of fascinating that they grew up in a time where they wanted to see all that stuff, which is awesome, because kids, a lot of things don't want to go backwards. They just want to see current and forward, right? They don't want to look back. Just like our generation, like, I would never watch a black and white movie. I'm like, why not? Those are the best.
Amazing.
But they didn't see everything live because they're too young. Like, they saw E.T. on VHS or something, like in 1990 or something, and so, maybe they just kind of all absorbed all this stuff, and it was just this crush, which I'm totally fine with, because that's a great story, because then they realized why these stories and these films and this type of filmmaking landed, with audiences. And that is not something that is singular to them. A good friend of mine who's a fantastic filmmaker, her name is Emily Higgins, who I met as a 14-year-old because she just made her first movie at 13 called Pathogen. And then they made a documentary about her. She was a big Monster Squad fan, but she wasn't born. She was born in like 95 or something. Sure. But she loves that era of movies and movie making style. And that's what she sort of started writing in and showing. And, there's some great stuff in her movies. I just love the stuff that she writes, because she has such a unique voice. And I've actually had two of her scripts, like in my on, I don't have a desk, but like on my desk, that I talk about and I've pitched for years and I want to see made. But that shows a generational thing where you may have missed something. Doesn't mean they didn't see it. They didn't have to grow up in that era, just like we didn't grow up in the 60s, but we saw 60s movies and were affected by it, or the music. And,
Sure.
that's what music and art and TV and cinema is you gotta be influenced by all of it.
Absolutely. Interweb Kaiju says, I really like Stranger Things, and I'm not usually big on shows. Okay. Fluffy says, keep this in mind, Brendan. You have until next Friday to catch up on Stranger Things, or he's not going to take you to Vegas.
Hey, I can always wait to see that movie that we're in on DVD when it comes out next month. Because Adverse, the movie that we're in with Thomas Ian Nicholas and Mickey Rourke and stuff, is in select theaters, and the only closest one is in Las Vegas. So if anybody lives in Las Vegas and you want to see Adverse with us, come on down.
Nice, man. Timothy says they should have made the cast watch certain films like Monster Squad and other films it riffs from as homework. I know for a fact a lot of the cast, I think in an interview where they said they hadn't seen any of them, and I think they watched like Goonies, like the big stuff. But like, the deep cut. I mean, Monster Squad, that's your goddamn show. I'm so that's
I'll let you pull that train on. Monster Squad is very, or Stranger Things is very Monster Squad-ish. I think there are elements in there. I think it's also a theming and a style, and there's a ton of other cool stuff in Stranger Things also. And that's what they said they wanted to do. They wanted to take all the stuff that they grew up on and what their older friends and siblings, everything grew up on, and just kind of crush it into one thing. And I mean, look, you have Stranger Things, but not that I'm poo-pooing. Obviously, they would, they know the value of the nostalgia feel as a style, but then they also gave it to us, by having Winona Ryder in it.
Yeah,
and it's kind of having this great holy crap. I mean, there's almost no one like her on camera, no matter if you like her or don't like her. I mean, she really has a thing. I thought it was a great choice because there was a lot of other nostalgic choices you could have put in that role. I thought that was almost perfect. And then you have Sean Astin, bringing in. What is that, season 2 or 3 on Shrey? It was 2, right? 2.
Yeah.
And so that's cool. So hopefully Stranger Things keeps just going and going and going. And maybe I'll get a call, or me and Ryan Lambert can show up.
Hey, Brendan, you were gonna say something, pal?
Yeah, no, when it comes to Winona Ryder, I've always been a fan of hers. Of course, Beetlejuice and Reality Bites and stuff. But when it comes to her on sets of movies, do you think people have to make sure they have their wallets next to them and they don't
I doubt it. I doubt it. It's fine.
I'm sure she's getting paid enough that she doesn't have to do that.
Hopefully she does. Hopefully she does.
Cancel culture would have cut so many scenes in Monster Squad came out today, like the Virgin Girl stuff. I agree. There's certainly a movie of its time. I don't think you can pull that movie off, especially little kids saying chicken shit, or I think they say the word faggot. They call Horace. I mean, there's some stuff, and you even go into it in the documentary a little bit as well. We do it very early on purpose, just to kind of start that conversation. That look, it is a thing. Everybody's aware. And we no one makes any excuses for it. The reality of it is that's the reality of it. And what's interesting, there's some dialogue and some phrasing and some actual words that you shouldn't and aren't even allowed to write on a page today, unless it's used as a pejorative and someone gets a comeuppance because of it. But what's interesting about Monster Squad is that's exactly what happens, especially with some words and phrases. It's really only Adam Carl and Jason Hervey's character that are the assholes, and that's why they're saying it, because they're the assholes and they get their comeuppance. The other thing is actually with situational comedy or phrasing and how the friends treat each other. That's how groups of friends hang out with each other and how they talk. What's interesting about the character of Horace is, the bullies call Horace fat kid, but so do his best friends. And that's okay. But it's when someone that doesn't love him
calls him that, then it's a bad thing. I think that's an interesting conversation there. One awesome thing that Ryan Lambert pointed out years and years ago was that Rudy never calls Horace Fat Kid. He always calls him Horace, which I don't know is intentional or not, but I think it's an interesting conversation. But what's different is that was something sort of a trope with, you know, ensemble kids for years, is you always had kind of either your plucky or chunky kind of, you know, clownish friend, you know, going all the way back to our gang, you know, the Little Rascals, which is basically what Monster Squad is. That's why we have the characters in there. You know, the origin spark of concept for Fred Decker was, what would it look like if the Little Rascals fought the Universal Monsters? And it's Monster Squad. And my God, you know, you should have Henry McComas on the show at one time to talk film and talk news and talk about Monster Squad, because he has a different perspective on it a lot. But he has a great take on the comparison of Horace and Chunk between Goonies. And what's interesting, if you look at it, Chunk is there for the comic relief, even for his best friends. His best friends don't even treat him that well. Like, they won't let him in without doing the dance and all this. So, like, we don't have that with Horace. Like, he's just part of the group. And you know, like, his size never really comes in to be like a joke. Like, he's never the joke of the joke. He's just the character that everybody, you know, relates to, because a lot of people can connect with Horace. Absolutely. And, you know, he's probably one of the characters that we meet over the years that everybody goes, look, everybody wanted to be Rudy. I wish I was Sean, but I was a Horace in my group. Like, I was the Horace. Right. And that character is endearing to me, and I will love Horace all the way until the day I die. And we've heard that a million times, and I think that it sets it apart. With the kind of, you know, whether you want to call it sexist today, that the girl has to be the, you know, pure virginal thing that is the only thing worthy of saving, you know, saving the world, because you have to be pure and a virgin. I mean, that goes all the way back to, I mean, ancient mythology. I mean, it's just a piece of mythology, you know, that hasn't really changed. I think if you were making the movie today, I think, you know, obviously they would mix up the characters and do all that. I think Phoebe would probably be the leader of the squad. And like I say in the doc, there'd be a funny conversation, like who's gonna read the spell, because does it really matter? As long as you're a virgin, isn't everybody either pure or not pure? Like, what's the difference? But I always took it, you know, once people started questioning that, and especially, you know, with this purity and I think that showed not a demeaning towards the girls or the women in our lives, but almost a reverence and a celebration of them. But then it gets into things like, well, you know, it's like, oh, I'm ineligible to say, you know, Patrick's sister is ineligible to save the world because she's actually had sex. Right. So she's just a horrible person. You know, it's, you know, change the dialogue of the mythology and we're fine. And you totally have the power to do that. Right. I think that's just, you know, that's just something that, you know, that comes, you know, really from the, you know, beginning of time, even, you know, pre, you know, biblical mythology, going back to, you know, Greek and, you know, Egyptian and Assyrian. It's always a thing, which has been kind of flip-flopped, because ancient mythology was always goddess centric. They was always worshiping the goddess, not the god. It was always the worship of the goddess, and that's what you revered. And I think that's where that came from. And I think people that have a big problem with it, they're not wrong at all. They can have that conversation, but just know that that's where that came from. And I think where we made the mistakes as humans is when we went away in newer ancient civilizations, away from the worship of the goddess into you know, not, and being more male centric. I think the world would be a much better place if we still worship the goddess.
Yes. Well, you know, things are changing. If Twitter has their way, maybe that might be. Yeah,
and I you know, if you want to cancel something, I think cancel the last couple thousand years of mythology. I think it'd be great, because then we'd be revering the things that we need and celebrating each other.
Absolutely. So I would be remiss if I didn't cover this. Now, this is an old story, but it's a question everybody asks. What is the future of Monster Squad? This is from, keep in mind, July 16th of 2019. This is the latest, the most recent thing I could find covering anything compared, speaking about a sequel or any kind of spin-off. And Fred Decker, of course, the director, had this to say, which I'm going
to
Okay. Shane Black and I have been both approached about adapting the Monster Squad for television. Was it my first choice? No, but I'm a big fan now of long-form television, and figuring out a way to take the Monster Squad and turn it into a long-form series was very exciting to me. But when we were approached, it was right after Stranger Things. I thought, well, let's make this for the people who fell in love when they were kids and say, where is the squad as adults? And Shane said to me, well, that's it. I said, yeah, it's a great idea. And he goes, no, that's Stephen King's It. The first part of the book and the first movie is them as kids fighting monsters, and the second movie is them as adults fighting monsters. And then he goes on to say, as a fan of the genre, there is nothing to me remotely interesting or new about Monster Squad as a movie or a TV show. Maybe in 10 years, maybe in 15 years. But right now, it's like, well, everybody's already doing it. So, Andre, what do you know anything? Can you give us any hints? I mean, this has been a long time ago. Is there anything on the horizon you can hint at, or are hopes dashed?
Not that I know of, whether it's a sequel or a TV show. I know when those things were happening and what they got approached and were asking about. And, ironically, Shane saying, no, that's it. No, Stephen King's It. It was all at the same time.
Yeah.
And then also, interesting, tied in with Stranger Things, because I think they went in, I don't know if it was both of them. I know it was Fred. I think, if I'm remembering the story correctly, was in a meeting at somewhere. It might have been Hulu or something like that. Mm-hmm. And they're like, look, what we want is, we want a group of kids that, have to, go on this adventure and create this world, and maybe they're fighting, creatures or monsters or, ghost villains or whatever it is. And they kind of want to be interesting. And, it's like, have you seen Stranger Things? Like we want to do something like Stranger Things. And this is always studio speak. Like someone always wants to recreate something that's always already popular, without being super creative, as a necessity. Right. And I think, someone like Fred, sits in that room and's like, wait, you want me to create a show copying a show that sort of copies the movie I made?
Yeah.
And he goes, I think we've done it. I don't think there's any reason to keep doing, you have it. It's called Stranger Things. You don't need to do anymore. And if you want, as someone as creative and world building as someone like Fred Decker could be, and a snappy dialogue writer like Shane, it's like, let's come up with something completely different. Let's not just, stamp out carbon copies of stuff we've already seen, because then you're isn't the DNA going to get diluted a little bit? It's going to end up just copying itself. Which I think was the point he was trying to make. I don't disagree with that point. I do think there's two different things here. I think there's a sequel story that could be really cool. No matter what's going on out in the world and other TV shows or movies. I always joke. I make the joke. There's a really, really interesting, I think, really cool sequel story on someone's laptop. And then I always joke, it's my laptop. Because there is, I came up with this really cool story that I think is a great framework that, someone like that's a much better writer and dialogue person than I, needs to put it together. But it could be very cool because what it does and, what it ultimately does. And I think if there's a sequel, it's got to be paying service to the original, filling in some blanks, having another adventure, and then it's got to be a passing of the torch type thing, because then your world can continue. Sure. The other thing is where I will disagree with Fred in his, as a fan of the genre, there's nothing to me new about Monster Squad. This is where I differ there. Look, the beginning of the Monster Squad says, 100 years ago, they did this and they blew it. Yeah. How did they blow it? And we actually don't get that in the movie because they cut the scene where they actually staked Dracula, but then they mess it up and he comes back, and so he escapes. We always assume in our movie that Dracula is like, how did he get there? how we get there is because he escaped 100. He's been walking around for 100 years. There's a Dracula story that is 10 decades long, from the Van Helsing story to our story. And I think that's fabulous long form television.
Oh,
like
man.
I want to see Dracula walking around, you know, when the Panama Canal was getting built, or, you know, during the Spanish flu of 1918, or, you know, maybe it's something where, you know, he's that evil that he's almost, you know, it's almost Forrest Gumpish, that he's always a part of something bad that's going on in the world, because he's trying to sow chaos and build up this time, because he's, you know, he's got 75 or 50 years or 25 years to go to where the forces are balanced, and maybe he's trying to, you know, stack the deck as he gets up there, because he's just pissed off walking around. You know, that's why he's so angry in our movie. He's such a good Dracula. And Duncan Regehr is probably, you know, he's a fantastic actor, and he is a badass Dracula. But he's really, really pissed in this movie because he's so driven. He's got one night. He's been walking around for 100 years for this one night, and we get in his way. Yeah. But I want to see him on, you know, pillages or adventures or stoking problems or creating wars or doing something all through the last 100 years. It's a great prequel. And I think it's a cool long form season. And, you know, maybe even do it some, I mean, look, what I haven't seen it yet, but I've been reading all about, like, WandaVision's jumping through decades. You know, to see Dracula in the 20s or the, you know, 20th century or during the 40s, and, you know, walking around Europe. And I mean, there's a lot to go on there, and I think that could be really cool.
Absolutely. I love that sort of the retro Monster Squad kind of take on it. But like,
and it's not necessarily Monster Squad, it's this but maybe there's other people that know, and maybe there's sort of like, you know, the Van Helsing lineage or whatever, or the our Priory of Sion or whatever that knows the secrets, and there's this guy out there, and, you know, there's always something. You know, kind of the first Wonder Woman did it, you know, where she comes, you know, and says, this is Hades, you know, this is, you know, the evil god, you know, it's like the god of war, the evil god, we got to stop him. That's what it, so there's a little mythology mixed in there, but let's bring that kind of real vampire lore. It's not mythology, but it's vampire lore, but set it in a different time. I mean, and you find a great actor, I mean, I wish it could be Duncan Regehr and just de-age him, because he's fantastic, but, I think that could be a cool thing to do. And I mean, you have 100 years to play with. Oh,
looks like Wetmovie had to go. His niece and nephew are a handful.
I saw that. That's great. I was gabbing on that. Sorry about that, Wetmovie. So
later, Brendan. Just a quick shout out. Raphael is here. He's going to be my guest next week, as well as on air. Where are you, pal? I know I just saw one. He says, Horus was God. Did Monster Squad play off of that, as Horus saved the day as well? I mean, Horus certainly was a hero, but I think what's so great about the movie was everybody worked together. It was a real team. You know, there was no one person who was the, you know, like the John McClane. Everybody got to be a hero in their own right.
Yeah, and I think even though there's individuals in the squad and in the group who have their roles or their jokes or their heroic moments, you know, you had to have that unit. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, connected with kids when they saw the movie or when they see it today, because the themes and the archetypes still hold up. You know, because there's a whole second generation of Monster Squad fans now that actually like the movie, and it's not very dated to them. You know, it's just about the simple story about these kids coming together and going on this adventure. And they dig the archetypes and the theming and the stories and the characters. So that it has legs and it has longevity, I think, which is very interesting. And I don't think Fred and Shane were, you know, I don't know if you were planning on that or not, but, you know, but if you plucked one character out of it, you know, for the time that we see them, you know, in the run of the movie, which is only a couple days, Horus is everybody's favorite character, because Ashley Bank always said it, you know, when we were in groups and Q&As, is Horus has the best arc of anybody in the movie, because he comes from, you know, just the kid who always gets picked on to literally stepping up and helping save the world, and the only one you know, that grabs the shotgun from a dead guy and saves the two kids that were his, you know, bullies.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of, that's kind of telling. And I think that's sort of the hero that everybody, would want to be. And we all hope that if we had that opportunity, would step up and be a force.
And that's the thing. That's what I love about these movies, is that it shows kids, like, look, you can step up. You don't have to be afraid. Even if you're afraid, that's when you get the most courage, man. That's when the real heroes are made, when you face your fear. And I tell my kids that all the time. My son has type 1 diabetes. I mean, he has to deal with needles every day. Imagine, imagine being 5 years old and having to have like shots every other day or every day. It sucks, man. But he faces it bravely, and he's my little hero for sure.
Well, I mean, what's going to happen? Yeah, what's going to happen there is, he's going to deal with something like that. Which if we could snap our fingers and change it, we would. We wouldn't want him to have to go through that. But what's going to happen is he's going to run up to stuff when some other things are going to be like water off his back growing up. Yeah. When he's a teenager or a young adult or dealing with something that goes wrong, or other people are complaining about this and that, and he's going to be like, "This is not that big of a deal." Yeah. It's like I'm impervious to this, superficial BS of which you are complaining today, because I have a different level that I've had to go to that you don't understand. And I have a different perspective on things of the world. And, you're afraid of, why are you running around freaking about a bee? Number one, we need to save the bees. And number two, they didn't hurt that bad. And two, I used to do that to me once or twice a day since I was 5. Get over it. Like, hopefully that's what it works out for him.
I hope so too. So far, so good. Andre Nation says, Horus, the falcon-headed god, Egyptian god. He has become one of the most used symbols of Egypt. He is one of many gods associated with falcon. His name means he who is above, he who is distant. That's pretty powerful stuff, man. I did not know that there was an Egyptian reference to that name.
I think that's another connotation of it. Sure, I'm sure there's some other etymology of it's not etymology. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
With the name and how it comes down with different cultures and languages. But yeah, that's awesome. It's like I said, everything tracks back to, we're not we're very far removed from old mythology, but it's still connected and affects us today, even in simple stuff that we are unaware of, which is kind of cool. And I think it's where all the great stories are, have always been mythology, and our movies, and that's all mythology was back when ancient, civilizations, is they had to have creative stories to explain things that they were unaware of or to entertain. Because those days were kind of boring. You didn't have lights, so it got dark when the sun went down, and maybe you had torches, but we had candles all the way up through the 1880s or whatever, or 1860s, right? And so it was dark, and you had to do something. It was boring, and all you did was work and eat and fight and die. I mean, it's you had to come up with stories to explain things you didn't know, and entertain everybody. And you sat around the campfire and told these stories, whether it was a tribal thing that became a religion or just stories within your family. And that's what I love about movies and the cinema. Which also TV is also the same thing, is, when cinema was invented, the movie screen and now the television screen just became our campfire. Yet we still sit around together with people we're related to or not related to in our community, and we listen to stories around a flickering light. Yeah. And I think it's all the same stuff. Our movies and TV shows and our books and stuff in our comic books are just our new mythology. So we're creating it'd be very, very interesting in, 1,000 years or 2,000 years, if we're still here, people walking around going, "Oh, you have no idea. We found these tombs and these papyrus scrolls, and the biggest god for these people in 2005 was this guy. He was so awesome, they called him Superman, and he was a god, for hundreds of years. And, he had a friend, sometimes nemesis, named Batman. It'd be very interesting if maybe another civilization comes, or, so there's a big, we find all these archives, and, all of us movie and comic book geeks are going to get buried with the stuff we like, and they're going to unearth us and be like, what the hell is Batman?
Ancient manuscripts were found. By the way, chat, now's the portion of the show. We're winding it down. It's a little longer than I wanted to go, but that's cool. we got Andre here. If you guys have questions, drop them in the chat right now, and we'll do our best to answer. We're going to hang out for a little bit longer. Raphael says, was there any Monster Squad licensed figures ever made? Now, he's a big toy collector, so I don't know if you know anything about this.
I do know, because we had to sign off our rights and our likenesses and work out the deals if it ever happened to actually get paid for it. And the answer is no. And the next question is why? And the answer to that is the movie bombed. You don't make action figures or licensed merch when your movie tanks in the box office and is only out for a couple days. And now, so the next question after that is, well, why am I now? The Monster Squad's bigger now than it ever would have been if it was a hit in the summer of '87, which I don't disagree with. But it's always been a rights issue. Like everything with Monster Squad has been a rights issue over the last 20 years. I don't actually think that, because if they did, I personally think that no one knows who has the piece of paper.
Gotcha.
Right now, Paramount apparently has the movie and title rights. But technically, somehow, if you ask them to produce proof of that, they are unable to.
Wow.
Which is, I don't know. It's just been a weird thing that we had to go through with making the documentary. And so, it's very interesting. So I think just out of straight speculation, I think that's tied with, actual licensing for actual figures and things like that, because if it was an easy find, someone would have done it 10 years ago.
Yeah. Speaking of Paramount and the sequel, I was lucky enough to pitch a Monster Squad sequel back in the day. Gosh, I don't even remember how long ago. Not that long ago, but it feels like a long time. And my take was, they try to rescue Frankenstein from limbo, and that was the sequel. Oh, yeah. So then we have to go into limbo. We're gonna rescue her, and Phoebe's grown up, and they have to go rescue. She's been thinking about Frank for years. She wants to go rescue him. She brings the gang back together. She's found a way to go into limbo, but all the monsters are there, plus Lovecraftian type of shit, and then they have to, they have to double down. So that was my take. It was like basically the search for Frank. I
like that. I like that because it comes from Phoebe's perspective and her wish fulfillment to get him out. So what you're saying is they would have to go into the upside down.
Essentially,
is that right? Isn't limbo upside down?
Yeah, I guess.
And maybe we find another entrance into limbo instead of
whirlwind or whatever.
Yeah. There's some there. See, that's not a bad pitch. Right there. It's an interesting story. It's current. It's updated, and obviously something happens and goes wrong, and there has to be a problem solving and an adventure in there, and maybe the whole thing takes place in limbo. That'd be kind of interesting.
Actually, funny enough, and we can talk off the air, but you mentioned Ryan Turek. Ryan Turek and I were developing something similar to Monster Squad that was a workaround from my Monster Squad pitch. We'll talk off air, but okay. Next question from Josh Boyd: was there a falling out with Robbie Kiger? That's a question I had. We don't see Patrick at these events. Do we know? Have you just lost touch, or what's the deal there?
Yeah, I mean, there was no falling out. I think someone mentioned something that I think Robbie actually did an interview not too long ago or something with Sean Clark, and I was just talking about old memories or whatever. But honestly, the whole thing is like we didn't know where he was, and we had no contact. We had reached out a couple times via social media when when conventions were kind of around. And then even during the documentary, I reached out to either even on Facebook or to someone that I knew had contact with them. Right. And just nothing came of it at the time. And, there was a very short window of it. It wasn't like we made this documentary for, 4 or 5 years. We did it in 10 months. And, one, it's not just about Robbie should have been in the doc. Sure, that would have been amazing. But, Robbie, it would have been great to have Robbie around and celebrating all of this resurgence. And I didn't have any personal contact with him, and I'm not in charge of all of that. And, whether I think he was living in Hawaii for many years. So it's hard to, kind of be, but I don't think he had a lot of contact with anybody around or in the industry, let alone us as individuals. Right. And there's certainly no falling out. You have to have contact to have a falling out of some sort.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known Robbie. We were from the Valley and we grew up in this business together and known each other from a very, very young age, way before Monster Squad.
Yeah. Okay.
He's the only one I knew. He's the only kid I knew in the movie, besides Jason Hervey and Adam Carl, before, because I was good friends with Jason and, friends with Robbie. Because when you're the same age and the same kid in the you're going to see each other, every day in auditions and on the set of stuff. So yeah, I haven't seen him in many years. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you guys will reunite soon. I mean, I feel like he is. I mean,
that'd be great. Maybe that's the sequel story. Like, where's Patrick?
You guys, it takes place in Hawaii.
I'm ready. That's fine with me. If Limbo looks like Hawaii, I'm good.
Yeah, pretty good. We should rescue Hank. Look, he's having a great time. He's got nice.
That's right.
Similar to that, I remember I met all the monsters at a convention here in LA one time, and I have all their autographs. It's so fantastic. And Noonan was such a cool dude, and I'm wondering why wasn't he in the Dog? Was it just a scheduling situation, or?
It's kind of two legit answers to that question because people ask. Okay. One is I reached out to Tom because I had his direct contact. He lives in upstate New York, and still a very much kind of busy working actor. And then I think his daughter was just going off to college at the time, and I let him know, and I was like, look. Do you have a travel schedule? Like, can something cross paths? I don't think I can take me and my crew and just go as a one-off because our schedule's so tight and our budget is so tight. Where are you? Are you interested in he got back to me and it was basically like, look, I have a really weird thing. I'm shooting this and I'm getting my daughter off. I don't know if, any of that works, which was disappointing because he's so iconic and such a part of Monster Squad. But then as what ended up happening and that was all prior, kind of ramping up to actually rolling cameras and, maybe the first 4 or 5 months of production. Yeah. And then we realized what we were getting and where kind of it was shaping up. And at the very end, I'm sure if we had him on camera, we would put him in something. But what really ended up happening with Wolfman's Got Nards is anybody that's on camera and telling a story, whether they're a fan, one of the filmmakers, or one of the cast, or one of the crew members. Yeah. They weren't there just because they were in the cast or were an effects guy or just a writer or an actor. They all had a story to tell about the resurgence and how this movie impacted their life. So everybody that's kind of on camera has a story of because that's what it's all about. It's how do things like movies impact people? This happens to answer that question through the lens of Monster Squad fans and cast and crew. But there isn't anybody on there just for the sake of the story. And Tom, bless her, one of my favorite creepy actors of all time. And I'm not being biased because he's just the creepiest dude ever. And I mean, so compelling on screen. But Monster Squad didn't change or impact him as a person or impact his career. He's going to be great. He's just going to go on and be great, whatever he did, good or, whether Monster Squad was a hit or not. But someone like Duncan, I mean, it gave him this leading role in a big studio movie that led to other things for him. It also gave this classically very well-trained actor a way to, embody and activate a famous character from literature that we've also seen on screen. And he had a different approach to it, which was fascinating to me. And, he talks about kind of that process. And then there was also the process of delivering that and, coming to some agreement with Fred, who may have had a different perspective on how Dracula should be, but Duncan wanted to bring this. So that was a compelling story. It wasn't that Tom Noonan doesn't give a shit about Monster Squad, because he does. I mean, he put a ton of work into that and had to get in a buttload of makeup every day. It just, once we found that out, we realized that, look, I would much rather have him in there, but that impact style of, he loves to go around and go to conventions and sign autographs and take pictures. He's there as Tom Noonan, and all the Monster Squad fans are like, holy shit, this is Frankenstein's monster. And he's like, no, I'm Tom Noonan. They're like, I'm Tom Noonan. And so it's I love when we get to see him on the road. He's an awesome guy. I love seeing him on screen. He usually scares the shit out of you or makes you feel uncomfortable in some way, shape, or form. And it was just it was a timing thing from the beginning, because we just couldn't get to him or vice versa. And then so it worked out okay. But I would have loved to seen him somewhere in the dock.
Absolutely. Eternal Melancholy asks, do you know if Monster Squad is coming to 4K? That's the next step. Do you have any ideas if that's happening?
Is the Blu-ray not clear enough for you? Like, do you need to see my very wispy mustache that clear in 4K? That's why I have this now. I'm making up for that. There's one bit in Monster Squad where I remember it every time, and it just embarrasses me every time I see it, or I get a giggle out of it. It's not embarrassing, but when I grab the amulet. And the way those were actual laser lighting and the room was set, and it hits my face in the right way where it lights up my little fuzzy lip for the first time. And you don't see it in most of the movie, but the way the light absorbed in that light, you see, oh my God, he's got this little weak mustache right there. And so, no, I don't know if we need it on 4K, damn it. But I also don't know if anybody's looking at that or actually gives a rip. I think you would probably see a 4K version in an international release before you saw it here. Because they're looking at if they look at other stuff. And I don't know who would do it. I mean, right now Paramount has the rights to it. And I don't know if they give. I don't know if they get, or they say they have the rights to it. Like I said, there's a weird question there. I don't know if they give a rip or care. I mean, they're still trying to, do other stuff they're trying to figure out. They weren't interested in, distributing the documentary. And so, a lot of people were talking about doing kind of like a companion thing there, do a 4K release. And then this doc was a companion piece.
Sure.
Which would have been cool. Maybe I braced against that a little bit because this isn't a companion piece to me. This isn't just about Monster. This isn't just about Monster Squad. This was a standalone piece to me, and I thought that was important. And I thought that was when it was going to come out 2 years ago and maybe have a small theater run. Luckily, I did an Alamo Drafthouse tour and went to 20 cities, so we got to have at least 20 or 21 screenings in theaters, not festival runs, which were awesome because I love the Alamos and all the people that work there, from the corporate office all the way to the local, creative managers in each city. I mean, these are all friends of mine now. And that's sort of how we were approaching it. Now that it came out, strictly on TVOD right now for rental and download, but with a Blu-ray or DVD, version, if you want to order that, you can. I think that's cool. I think it's a standalone thing enough on its own. Now later on, if an international thing, like it's how they double it up, I'm not going to argue with that. I just want to get this movie out to other countries. And maybe there's a re-release and they add it as a companion thing if you buy the 4K. I'm up for that conversation too. But it's I don't know what they would add in 4K except for it's like you said, it's clearer, and you can probably see you can probably see our acne a little bit better. I don't know. I guess I don't now if they found other deleted scenes and to add in there, that could be cool. That and actually weave them into the movie or as bonus features. That's the only way I would like to see it, because there's a lot of stuff in Monster Squad that was kind of shot. And it would be neat to see. And one of them was that elemental. I think it was foundational of how they blew it, quote unquote. And they cut that out of the movie for some reason.
Wow, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. This is a good sort of follow up. What is missing from the movie that you think completely changes the movie, or at least it's like, wow, if the fans saw this, it would be kind of a different experience?
I think that scene at the beginning, because it's and look, there's a lot of the thing I always lament about the final, what we see as in the final cut of Monster Squad is, and when what's missing and it's not there, because the Monster Squad, the way Fred and Shane write, it's a series of setups and payoffs, and it's not just one from the beginning and a payoff at the end. It's a constant, kind of you know, going back on itself, building up, set up, payoff, set up, payoff, set up, payoff. They may not go in sequence. You may have to get a couple setups and then you get a payoff and the two more and then it comes, but you all get paid off. There's always payoffs to the setups in a Fred or Shane kind of story. And the biggest one is with how they blew it. And it's a beautiful, it's a great scene. You know, they throw Duncan up against a tree and they stake him. I have a production still. It's from behind Van Helsing's shoulder, and he's got the stake, and he's getting ready to throw the mallet on it. And Duncan's got this fantastic face, and it's just gripping. And then the scene, what happens is then I believe, you know, I would have it sequenced is stake him, they throw him in a wagon, and they go up to the castle to do the limbo thing. Oh, and you know, because it's at midnight, they got to wait. That's why he was in a rush, because they were tracking him down and chasing him through the woods, and they had to battle some, you know, creatures and hunt him. They literally hunt him down with dogs and throw him against a tree and kill him. It was a fantastic scene. Wow. And they put him in a wagon and leave a guy to guard the wagon by a campfire. And, you know, he's basically your red shirt while they go up to the castle to do this spell. Well, as they're doing the spell, you're supposed to cut back down out of the castle to this guy, and he's sitting by the wagon by a campfire, and out of the woods come 3 vampire brides. Okay. And so he stands up and shoots one of them with the crossbow, and he's like, oh, and the other one like grabs him, and he has a stake and stakes her. And then the other one's choking him, and it's a battle. And he's struggling, and he comes around, his hand finds purchase on a stake. He finds a stake, grabs it, and kills her. And he's like, "Oh, I survived. I'm the man." But of course, in vampire lore, when you unstake a vampire, they come back to life. And the stake that he had grabbed was the one that was in Dracula. And while he's sitting there reveling in his victory, Duncan's Dracula sits up in the wagon. And obviously that guy's dead. And then that's how Dracula gets away. Oh, shit. So they read the limbo thing and sucked it all up and, you know, lost the German girl into the vortex and a couple of the kind of freedom fighters. But Dracula runs away, and that's how he's loose for 100 years. And that's where my kind of prequel stories always come. It's like, Dracula's been walking around for 100 years. But where the setup and the payoff is not just in they blew it. I mean, then it changes the whole story, because we saw that. And they're like, what has Dracula been doing? Right. And everybody's like, where did he get a car? Like, where did he get dynamite? And I was like, he's been walking around for 100 years. Yeah, it's like, I always like to think he got the dynamite because he stole a bag of dynamite when they were building the Hoover Dam or something. You know, it'd just be, you know, just rad shit like that. Right. But if you the setup and payoff that I miss by not having that scene on screen is when those vampire brides come at that guy by the campfire. He ultimately makes the mistake and revives Dracula, but it is almost the exact setup for Rudy's payoff in the street at the end. Right. Because the 3 vampire brides, he shoots one, the other one, he stakes her, and then he's choking her, and then he gets her. It was basically the bookend to that. And which I always thought was awesome. And they don't have it in it. You know, we were just Fred was just reminiscing a little bit on Facebook this week. There was a scene. I think we shot it because I remember either blocking it and shooting it, and they just cut it. But when we're walking in the school hallway and right after the principal's office, Patrick and I are talking, and this kid, you know, it's kind of a little scrawny kid, runs up to Sean, and they trade baseball cards, or either garbage pail kids cards. I think it might have been. And it's just a quick interaction, and then the kid runs out. Like it's just a side thing while we're walking down the hallway. Yeah, which would happen in school. You know, we've all been there. But they ended up, you know, not using it or cutting it. I thought we shot it. I thought it was on camera, and they just cut it out. I think Fred had mentioned like we didn't even shoot it, so I'll defer to the adults in the room at the time. But that kid was Dustin Diamond. No shit. And so that was like a 10-year-old Dustin Diamond, and he was very new and very. This is what, you know, just before Saved by the Bell, and you know, he was kind of this, you know, this quirky, you know, off, you know, kind of, you know, great energy kid. And he comes in and does this little scene, says one word or line, and we trade cards, and he runs off.
Wow.
It'd be very interesting if that was still in the movie, especially now, because I don't think, I knew him throughout the years, and I knew him from that day. And all the Saved by the Bell kids were awesome, whether you were fans of the show or that or not. I knew Mark Paul a little bit better as we were, young adults, because we played on the celebrity basketball team together for a number of years. But yeah, I mean, Dustin Diamond became literally a cultural icon with a character. And I think he got a bad rap. That's always a tough thing to do, to become that, and no one can ever see you as anything else.
Absolutely.
And look, I mean, he reprised the role as a ton of times, and everybody loves to clown someone like the Screeches, or whatever characters. We can name a list of those, and I think that's very unfair, no matter who it is, let alone kids. And you don't ever let them become who they are or someone else. And I don't know if this would have ended up being preventable or whatnot, but I know he didn't want to go get the lump on his neck checked out. And I, as a stubborn human male of our current time, I understand that you don't want to go to the doctor and get anything told bad to you, but you should, if you have a lump on your neck, go get it checked out.
Absolutely.
The original, some of the first incident write-ups were like, he didn't want to hear bad news and all that. I was like, yeah, we all get that. But apparently from his girlfriend, the quote that got me, and I wasn't even really good friends with him, but I just knew him over the years. But whenever a contemporary or someone actually dies, it hits you. Your mortality kind of comes into view a little bit. But she was quoted as saying he didn't want to go get it checked out because he didn't want people recognizing him and then talking about it.
Gotcha.
And making fun of him or ridiculing him for being sick or having, I was like, that's a perspective you don't want to have.
No,
and if that was the reason, I think we're all at fault. And people should take a look at themselves and feel pretty fucking bad about that.
Yeah. Night Watch is here. Night Watch, how you doing, buddy? He says he loved Monster Squad. Night Watch has a great channel, guys. If everybody in the chat, go check out Night Watch Zone. Joey Arizona, love your channel. Been a fan since the Black Friday vlogs. Keep up awesome work. Stay grinding. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that very much. Guys, we're winding it down. Let me know in the chat real quick if you guys would prefer a TV show follow-up to Monster Squad or a sequel movie. I'm curious to take the temperature of the room. I've got one last question for you, and we're sort of in that realm talking about Dustin. Let's talk about Brent. Now, obviously, most people would consider, Horace the number one, character in that movie. He says Wolfman's got nards, he's got the shotgun sequence, which is so memorable. When did you find out that he passed away? Was it when this whole thing was happening or before that?
I actually it was weird because I was not anywhere near LA at the time in I think it was 96 or 97. It was 96, 97. I had graduated college. I was at the University of North Carolina, Asheville, and I ended up being on campus, working there the next year. I was actually working on campus at the time, and someone that went there actually knew him and said, "Hey man, I don't know if you know, but Brent Chalem died like last week or whatever it was." And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, "Yeah, he died, and he was in, he's not." I was like, and that's all I knew, because this was 96, 97. There was an internet, but not really. And, no one was emailing or talking to each other or anything like that. And and then I read a blurb somewhere in a magazine or something that mentioned it. And then some other fans said, "But this is in that dull time where no one was talking about Monster Squad." And I just thought that was, just shitty news. And I didn't know anything about it. You just hear what the, kind of rumors were and how it swirled around of what the story was. And, we knew we wanted to one, and also needed to address it in the documentary. But it was tricky because we didn't want to do it, just as you know, let's pull your heartstrings and yeah, the kid's dead and boo hoo, because no one felt that way. It's like, how do you go about this? And obviously, because he, you know, why we would want him on camera talking about, you know, the experience of being Horace and impacting all these people. And that's a giant loss that we don't have him on camera for the doc. And that's being selfish and exploitative. But the, you know, the thing is we couldn't even interview his brothers or sisters because he doesn't have any. We couldn't interview his dad because his dad had just died. We couldn't interview Betty. We couldn't interview Betty, his mom, because she died shortly after I think we shot Monster Squad.
Oh, wow.
So the only people that were left that we could find and talk about Brent were family friends and like a girl that he grew up with that, you know, was, you know, a girlfriend at one time, Rachel. And luckily, you know, Rachel and her mom, you know, were family friends and everybody, and they grew up together. And we didn't, I could have sat in a chair and talked about Brent and it would have been total BS because I hadn't seen him for a long time and I don't know the story. It's not my story to tell. It's not Ashley's story to tell. It's not Fred's story to tell. It's Brent's story, but he's not here to tell it. And so we did the next best thing. And the people that knew him and grew up with him and loved him as a family member were the ones that, you know, got to speak for Brent. And we didn't know until we had Eileen and Marcia and Rachel on the couch and Eileen's, you know, townhouse, actually what the story was. And we were all kind of sitting there, you know, crammed in her living room with camera gear and lights and listening to these people tell the story of, you know, why he actually died. And it wasn't, it was, what's tragic about it is that it didn't have to happen. It was, you know, what it's like I said, I don't retell the story. It's not my story to tell. We show it in the doc, you know, we let them tell it, but it was definitely something as a shock that, that makes it even worse. That makes the tragedy even worse. And, you know, the big thing is that he's not, you know, my perspective of it is, yeah, this really sucks because the human being's no longer with us. That's bad enough. But then add on the fact that he's everybody's favorite character and that he's not here to experience the resurgence and this absolute, you know, love for his character and him as that character. That's sad that he can't experience that or absorb that. And then the other thing too, it's sad for the fans that they don't get to meet their favorite character. I mean, how, you know, or sorry, the guy that played their favorite character. And I think both sides would have, you know, just eaten this last 10 or 12 years up. And that's, and you can't do anything about it. So you can't get super sad about it. But it certainly impacts and touches you and makes you think, and boy, what a different world it would be, one with him in it. And two, you know, just on the Monster Squad resurgence and fandom that they get to see Brent and Brent gets to see them. Cause I just know, you know, the affirmation and the love that I get and that Ryan gets and Ashley gets from a fan, it would have been 10 times for Brent. And so, I mean, that's unfortunate that someone doesn't get to absorb that a little bit. Cause, you know, that's he was a very smart kid. He had just graduated. I think he had just graduated Berkeley or was getting ready to go to law school. I mean, he's just 21 or 22. And, who knows? I think it would have been a great story that he grows up and, you know, becomes my lawyer. That'd have been great. I would have let him battle the world for me for sure.
It was funny. Chunk from the Goonies, he's a lawyer.
He is. He's a very successful entertainment lawyer.
I mean, that's amazing.
Thank you, Josh, for that chat bubble.
Yes.
It was something that I don't want to say we struggled with how to do it, but we made sure we approached it very cautiously and let other people tell the story and then find out what we had. It's definitely obviously an emotional part of the film, and that's on purpose. But it is anyway. And I think we did, because it's something that me and Henry McComas and Wes Caldwell, we all sat and we talked about what we had and how to approach it and what to do, because we didn't have updated video of them. We didn't have an interview. We just had some old still photos, and that's really all you can do when you're doing sort of a memorial. I look, everybody says it's a fabulous part of the documentary. I thank you. I think it is. I think it's a necessary part of the documentary.
Yes.
I hope we did it in a manner that doesn't seem exploitative of Brent or his circumstance or his family's. Right. And we just wanted to kind of obviously pay tribute to someone who, had probably a larger impact than all of us combined on it. And I mean, he's the one that kicks Wolfman's in the nards. He's the one that says the line. It kind of all works out.
That's what I was gonna say. He's the one who says Wolfman's got nards. You have to touch on where he is and what happened to him. Chat has chimed in a little bit. Timothy says he'd love a TV show with the right budget and crew, which is obviously a dream. Just Dave would like a sequel. And Inoweb Kaiju says a TV show, classic Universal monster illusions alone would make it stand out from Stranger Things. I agree. I think that's probably something Universal should look into instead of trying to make Tom Cruise the Mummy, which was a very terrible choice.
Well, that was, as many of your listeners or viewers may or may not know, they were remaking the Monster Squad a number of years ago. And Rob Cohen, who happened to be a producer on the original Monster Squad when he was younger, who's now, a giant director and producer, was teamed up with Platinum Dunes, which is Michael Bay's company, to actually remake the Monster Squad. And they had hired writers and trying to formulate a script, I guess, and it never really got to where they thought it would work because it's a hard movie to remake. And for the reasons we touched on a while ago. But that was right at the time that Universal was announcing the Dark Universe. And they were like, why, if Universal is doing the, Universal monster thing again, why are we trying to do a Monster Squad?
Right.
Which is interesting because they're not the same. Like, you're making Monster Squad, it's like now you're stepping on why you shouldn't do a reboot where you do a sequel or a different reimagining of it. But yeah, I mean, I think the classic Universal monsters were always they're really the foundation of our movie monsters.
Yeah.
And there are archetypes and reasons that they exist in literature and on screen, but they really are the foundational monsters for all the other monsters we ever come up with. Right.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that is, and that's why I think, I mean, WandaVision's doing it right now. They're going through the decades and doing this thing where everybody's touching, and I think that WandaVision is going to have so many other more twists and things that are going to blow people's minds.
Sure.
But I think that could be interesting if you're doing a TV show, it's a prequel type thing, and it could be a series. It could be multiple short form type things, which I'm a fan of. We've got to get more creative, with our streaming shows anyway. It can't just be, the 8-episode one-time thing, because we get that. And then you get things like Bly Manor, which is awesome, but they're long, slow burns, right? Yeah. And they have great payoffs, and they look great and sound great. Some people, I think you could do a 3-episode arc of Dracula walking around in the 20s and just bang, 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 and it's nonstop story. And then, a month later, you release a 3 or 4 episode of him walking around through the 30s and going through, I mean, you could have 10 seasons of it very quick. That
sounds awesome to me, man. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, that's just sort of always been one of my things. But thank you, Thelma. Yeah, it is. I mean, I would trade a ton of other things that we've experienced over the last 10 or 15 years with Monster Squad just to have Brent be a part of it.
Absolutely. One last Wolfman's Got Nards for him. Raphael says maybe an animated movie sequel. I don't know. That's interesting. I mean, kind of neat if you did like a badass anime or something like that. But
well, you certainly could, and like I said, that's where you can go. There's a lot of stories to go on. There's prequel stories. There's right after our time. You could animate that. You could animate in between that and our time. You could animate current. You could go on a whole other tangent to to where I'm not giving away ideas or secrets or anything, but maybe there's more than, maybe there's other amulet type things that can open up limbo and release evil in the world. And, animation, you can do so much. There's no limit to what you could do there. And Absolutely. I know Fred's always loved graphic novels and comic books. I mean, there's some stories to tell that you could do.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to leave it there, folks. I've kept my guest quite a bit, but thank you so much for hanging out, Andre. I really appreciate you being here, man. Look, it means the world to me.
Appreciate it. Have me on, I'll come back. We'll talk about something else. I appreciate, talking about old stuff, news, history. Monster Squad's a part of that, and appreciate giving a little shout out and some signal boost to Wolfman's Got Nards, which I think is doing well right now, but it's not up to the PR firms or the VOD platforms. It's up to people like you and people like Raphael and people spreading the word and telling their friends and talking about your your film appreciation class and spreading the word. So that's what it's all about. So it's good.
Absolutely. And so guys, I just saw it literally like 2 days ago, and I'm like, God, this is so good. Go get it on Amazon Prime. That's where I picked it up, or I downloaded it or bought it. I don't know what you call it now, but whatever. The digital thing is there. There is a Blu-ray as well. You guys know I love physical media, but it wasn't going to get to me in time. So I go, well, I'm gonna get the digital. I loved it. I think you guys are gonna, if you guys love 80s movies at all, even if you've never seen Monster Squad, I think you're gonna appreciate this documentary on a whole bunch of different levels. Everything from just the fandom. They interview a lot of fans and nostalgia, and just seeing the side of filmmaking that you never see from the perspective of the actors and how they realize, holy shit, we made this thing that we thought was forgotten about, but it was secretly loved and fostered and nurtured for years, secretly in people's living rooms, and they grew up with these characters. I mean, I can't even imagine that feeling when you realize, holy shit, people actually gave a shit. People loved this movie.
And that was the original question when we started. Like, why did we make this doc? And it was because I saw and heard those stories and met these people, and then realized that this is kind of unique. I think this is an interesting story. And like you said, we made it very not just about Monster Squad. It's really about movies of whatever era that impacted you, and it kind of transcends Monster Squad a little bit if you view it right. Some people don't see that sometimes. Sometimes they just see it as a self-aggrandizing inside baseball tongue bath of Monster Squad, which it's not, because we open up with the warts and the failures, but it's really about turning the focus back on the fans, which was the really the reason this movie never died, and is now stronger and bigger than it ever would have been. And so I wanted to, we've been getting the attention since 2006. And I thought it was important to turn around and really give the credit where the credit is due. And it's the people like you guys.
Amazing. And shout out to Squadcast. Let us know what that is, because I just found out about it as well.
Squad. Yeah, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago, back when we had, Ryan and I had actually just moved kind of independently back to LA at the same time. And even though we'd seen each other over the years traveling, but and we would sit around and have lunch or have a drink and tell stories and cut up and be funny, and because we're very similar but we're completely different, and but are still good friends. And we were like, wow, we should have recorded that. That was really funny. And my wife had always been like, I don't know why you aren't doing a podcast. I was like, I'm going to do a podcast. Everybody has a podcast. These no one wants to hear us. And this was 5-6 years ago. And after about a year, we finally decided to get a microphone and sit down and do a podcast. And of course, it was called Squadcast. And we always said Squadcast, which is how we signed off. But we just wanted to be where we brought friends in and talked and goofed off, and it was very conversational. I think you can still see. I think you can go on YouTube and hear our episodes. Yeah. They're still up there on the Squadcast page. It's been a number of years since they did it, but who knows? We could always bring it back. Awesome. And then, so, don't follow Squadcast. You usually go watch those. I think we have, 18 episodes or something, or 15. And then, but yeah, let us know. Follow myself, please, at Andre Gower on Twitter and at Andre Gower Official on Instagram. And please follow the documentary, which is at the Squad Doc. Or at the squaddoc.com. Find out what platforms it's on, read news, Twitter feeds, things like that. Please follow us, tweet out about it. tell your friends and share it, because that's the way everybody gets to enjoy it. And, you know, every time that happens, we appreciate it. And, you know, speaking for me and my studio partner, Pilgrim Media Group, and right now it's out because of Gravitas Ventures, who releases a lot of cool stuff on a lot of platforms. So give everybody a shout out. But yeah, the more you tweet and mention, and I try to be very active on social as much as I can. And if the least I can do is give a heart or a thumbs up, I will. But sometimes I get into good interactions and do some cool stuff with fans. So, you know, follow me, follow the movie, you know, keep supporting Master Chaos and everybody's cool shows, because one, no matter if it's COVID year or not COVID year, we're going to have this shit for a while. This is where everybody goes to hang out and have fun. And, you know, let's bloviating, you know, people like me, you know, go off on tangents and talk way too much.
Yeah, you know, all those links are going to be in the description, guys, as soon as, you know, because this is a live, so it takes a minute for YouTube to figure things out. So I'll put all the details in the descriptions. Give me like an hour or so to figure that out. But you'll have all the links to Andre, all that good stuff. Please go see the documentary. It is mind-blowing. I had a big smile on my face the whole time. And I just, man, this really means a lot to me, because like when I was a kid, I was like, yeah, I discovered it on HBO, and Monster Squad was the movie that said, damn, I want to make that. I don't just want to be one of the kids. I want to be one of the kids, and I want to make that. And it's funny to me that, you know, now you're a filmmaker with the documentary, and like that's who Sean would have become. I feel Sean would have gone on monster movies, right? I feel like that feels like true.
Yeah, we've talked about, and Josh, thank you for owning the Blu-ray. You're awesome. I hope there's you and 75,000 other Joshes out there buying the Blu-ray. Yeah, I mean, what would these characters have do? I mean, we used to sit around years ago and talk about a sequel, and it has nothing to do with adventure. Our whole thing was like the four of us sitting in a coffee shop,
big chill,
and just, you know, yeah, sort of just doing that story, and that kind of would have been interesting as well. But yeah, who knows? You know, Sean either obviously would have become like a cop or a fed, or, you know, like a state investigator that also did paranormal shit on the side or something, but also would become a history buff like all the kids were. You know, Phoebe would become a teacher and a great mom, and Rudy, you know, I have some ideas of what everybody else became. They're all part of, you know, the ongoing story. But yeah, I think he would have been something like that. And you know, maybe written a book about, you know, something that had nothing to do with their experiences. And like, you know, it'd been funny. And, or maybe, you know, I've also penciled down the, you know, the notion that this is, you know, because we always love to put on our tinfoil hats sometimes, or talk about, you know, alternative kind of theories, or maybe they're not conspiracy, but maybe they're sort of like, hey, this would have been really cool. And, you know, maybe someone like Sean or Phoebe or even Eugene was the one, you know, that picked up and started writing and diving into history and realizing what we just went through,
right,
you know, as kids. And wait, Dracula was walking around for 100 years. Is he tied into anything? What was he doing? And so maybe he was researching, and, you know, maybe Eugene is the one that's researching, or Sean's researching and writing books, or, you know, an op-ed column or something, and doing all this deep dive internet research on bad shit that happened in the world. And it's all because of Dracula. I mean, that's a cool story.
Well, gang, that's it for Hollyweird episode 3. Thank you so much for watching. Andre, thank you so much for being here. Wetmovie, wherever you are, thank you so much. I hope you'll eventually get a lock for that door and keep the niece and nephew out. My friend, I appreciate you being here. It means the world to me that you have subscribed and that you're enjoying the content. Master Chaos is here for you daily, sometimes twice. I'm working hard. This is a full-time job, and it is stressful, but I'm having such a blast bringing you guys entertainment day in and day out. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs. I'm almost there. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subs by Valentine's Day. If I do that, I'm going to bleach my beard hot pink. I'm going to surprise the wife. She doesn't know what's happening. It's a really stupid thing, but I'm going to do it because I feel that's motivation to get people to sub. So it is what it is. Thank you so much for watching. Andre, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome. Yeah, get him to 1,000 subs. You know, if someone on my side can help out, do that. And you know, support each other in this group. meet other friends that, you know, you may like the same stuff, and follow Master Chaos, follow me, support everybody that you can. And we'll see you next time.
Absolutely. With that, we bid you adieu. Hollyweird next Friday, 5 p.m. PST. I'm going to have 2 new guests. We'll be talking Hollywood news, crazy stuff. I think, no, actually, this weekend is Super Bowl. Are you a Super Bowl guy?
I'm less sports in it than I used to be. It used to be my world, but I'll be watching the game on Sunday. Sure,
I'll be watching it too. I don't really follow it, but you know, it's a distraction. The trailers.
I don't have teams or favorite people. I think the Tom Brady story is amazing. I love success, and I think that, you know, the Chiefs have built a good thing. I just like good games. I always usually pull for an underdog, but I just like sport and I like competition. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't root for anybody, and I won't be getting in a fight in the parking lot of anybody. But I just like really good games because I've always been a sports guy.
Yeah, I don't follow football at all, but I totally watch the Super Bowl. It's a fun thing to do, so I'll be there.
It's in and of itself an event and a cultural icon. And my last couple of years, I've really, you know, waned off of sports. Like my only interests are golf and reading and making projects and a little bit of yoga here and there. So it's,
that's awesome. Okay, pal. Well, that'll be it for this time. I'll see you next Friday with a whole bunch of new guests, new stories, new whatever. But I'll be here tomorrow. I hope you will be as well. And as I forget who said it. Someone just said it. Don't forget, you got to kick Wolfman in the nards because he's got them. He has nards.